in the Iranian regime. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel. And God bless America. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to our live special coverage here on Real America's Voice on the U.S. strike on Iran. You were looking at a live shot of the briefing room at the Pentagon, and you see two podiums in front of you. One of them will be taken by our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. The other will be taken by Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kaine, as they will be giving a news conference at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And judging by the way that the press is already sitting down and getting ready, I think that sucker is going to go on right as scheduled. Frank Gaffney is joining us. So is David Zier. Frank, I asked David a moment ago what he would ask if he were in that news conference, getting a chance to ask a question. Let me let you take a crack at that also. What would you ask if you had a chance to ask a question?
Well, obviously, I think we're all very anxious to get the battle damage assessment, Jake. So that presumably will be top of the reporters' minds and would be of mine as well. I think we do want them to exercise care about disclosing too much about, the kind of tactics and, for that matter, even the capabilities that we use, simply because, as the president has signaled, we may need them again, not only in Iran, obviously, but quite possibly elsewhere. Having said that about, not wanting too much of the hand to be shown, it might be interesting to have some sense, at least in a sort of generic way, what are considered to be options for further strikes. But I think the single most important question to me is, does Israel have the capability, is it assessed to have the capability to finish the job vis-a-vis the Iranian leadership? That is to say, removing the last of them, the Ayatollah Khamenei himself and his senior subordinates who haven't been struck so far. And as importantly as whether they can, do they have the latitude to do so? Is that something that is now clearly on the table, especially, as I said at the very top of the show, Jake, because we're sitting here, and we'll be talking, I'm sure, with the Secretary and Raising Kaine about the threat that now exists to our personnel in the Gulf, to Israel, and to us here at home, most especially. We need to know that that regime that is in a position, and for all present purposes, we can assume, is saying to those who are capable of attacking our target sets, go for it. Are they going to be put out of business? Or are we going to, in the hope of getting some kind of further deal with them, tell the Israelis, no, don't go after them? I pray that's not going to be the case. I think it would be a terrible mistake and possibly squander the decisive victory that is now in prospect for Israel and for us as well.
David Zier, I think that you can help us with this because, look, of course, the United States now, as Frank just said, faces some new threats from Iran. But, folks, if you think this just started, if the United States has started something and now there's going to be some kind of reverberation from that, you really are coming to this party extremely late. David, let's talk about some of the terror cell activity guided and funded by Iran for years. This has been going on for a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, you can go back a long time. I've been following this since I'm about 12 years old, with the Hezbollah Shiite-oriented attacks, the 241 Marines killed in Lebanon, the 2 bombings of our Israeli embassies, the killing of CIA Station Chief Jim Buckley, the hanging of Colonel Higgins, these incredible attacks, the TWA hijackings, dumping the body of a U.S. Navy SEAL on the tarmac in Beirut, Lebanon, the senior center attacks in Argentina, killing 80 or 90 people, an attack on Jews in Argentina, and the Khobar Towers. We had 25 U.S. soldiers killed between Khobar Towers and the attack a year before in 1995. And I know a lot of our audience has parted ways with George Bush, with the second Bush, but he promised the families of Khobar Towers when Obama left that he would prosecute them, and he did. And on the first day, or first few days in office, he called in the families of the Khobar Towers, and started making indictments and arrests and capturing Iranian assets. So it gets worse, because on top of all these incredible hundreds of attacks, thousands of attacks around the world, I believe there were 6 sleeper cells just in the UK broken up in the last year or two. And we also had an assassination plot of Trump. Farhad Shakari was plotting the assassination of Trump, and the charges, he was instructed by an Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps official, and that's who runs Iran. They own 50% of the oil assets in Iran through subsidiary companies. They own the telecom industry. They're entrenched. There's 3 leaders right behind the Supreme Ayatollah over there, and so without a significant uprising from within, I don't know if it's possible to change what's going on here. But that Trump was at the top of that assassination list here. And remember at the border years ago, in between Trump and I think at the end of Trump's term, there were Iranian suspects captured at the border. I think one woman had like $17,000 in cash on her. There's been a lot of activity here, and there's been at least 15 Iran-linked terror attacks and kidnappings and assassination attempts that the UK has broken up in just recent years, a sharp rise in threats from Iranian dissidents. And then on top of that, we've got threats in the United States. But my point is that there were lone wolf attacks in New York City, supposedly lone wolf, right? You had the Home Depot truck driver while Trump was in office in Halloween, killing 8, 9 people. The pressure cooker bomber, the subway bomber. Now, these guys were Sunnis, but you also had a Palestinian terrorist in 1987 murder somebody on the top of the Empire State Building. You had Lubavitch students on the Brooklyn Bridge. They stopped the bus with a shotgun and a pistol, and they killed a 15-year-old student. I believe he was 15. These attacks were nonstop, and then you had the Pakistani ISIS-related guy who put the fuse in backwards of the propane bomb in Times Square. If that thing went off, and thank God for Wayne Radigan, the mounted police officer who I've spoken to at length, he caught it in time before the guy had a chance to flip the fuse around. We would have had a couple of hundred dead just from the glass in Times Square. So we have to be super vigilant, and the activities on the college campuses and what happened in Denver and what happened in D.C. Or in Boulder and what happened in D.C. a few weeks ago, I think you will see anti-Semitic hate on the rise. As I said earlier, in April, I think there was about a 35% increase in attacks on Jews in New York City alone. That has subsided, but that's probably going to happen again. My kids live in New York City. I can't sleep at night. I lost my best friend in 9/11 from when I was a teenager, one of my best friends. My sister lost 81 clients. Howard Lutnick lost 700 employees. We don't want to see anything like that again. So it's time to be super vigilant. And I don't mind the deportations. Let's get rid of anybody who hates America right now who has any type of Iranian affiliation.
Hey, Jake.
Yeah, I'd make a couple of points.
One additional
don't
point.
forget. Oh, go ahead, Frank. Go ahead, Frank.
Just to add to that litany that David very handsomely laid out. Speaking of 9/11, David, as you know, the Iranians did secret, covert training of those hijackers inside Iran for 9/11. There was an Iranian piece of that plot, and it speaks to the issue that you sort of alluded to, and that is the willingness of the Shiites of Iran and the Sunnis, Saudi Arabia and Qatar most especially, as evidenced in Hamas, being perfectly willing to collaborate against those that they consider to be their mutual enemy. We're being told endlessly that, they don't get along. Well, they don't get along unless it serves their purposes to go after us. And just to emphasize this point, the Muslim Brotherhood operations, and I think some of them are ones that you were referring to there, David, are very dangerous in this country as well. I mean, Donald Trump has, in a memorable speech on the 15th of August, 2016, laid out the case for stripping out the networks of the ideology that he called radical Islamic terrorism. I think is better described as Sharia supremacism. We need to be doing that right now, both for the Iranian threat purposes here and the Muslim Brotherhood ones. hood ones as well.
You know, Frank, I just wanted to add, you know, a civil court found on behalf of 1,000 victims, families of 9/11, and gave them billions of dollars in a lawsuit against the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Central Bank of the Islamic Republic for that training.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
You know, you're looking live right now. I want to show
understood.
the briefing room. Yeah, I just want to show the briefing room just for a second. Sorry about that, Frank. This is the live shot of the briefing room at the Pentagon. As you can see, 2 podiums are at the stage there. One will be taken by our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. The other will be taken by Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kaine any moment now. And we're going to be getting that to you live as soon as it begins. This is your live coverage here on Real America's Voice this morning.
When surprise breakdowns happen, American Home Shield will be there to fix or replace parts of the systems and appliances you rely on every day. They help protect your time and money by connecting you with qualified pros and helping pay for covered repairs or replacements. AHS offers flexible and affordable plans for every home. Sign up today and get $100 off with code AHS100. Visit AHS.com or call 833-PLAN-AHS.
You push it. You try to slide it. You even try to hold them shut. But your doors just won't stay closed, no matter what. Introducing.
It's Sunday, June 22nd, 2025. Welcome to Real America's Voice News. This is Sunday the Road Forward. All eyes are watching the war between Israel and Iran, even as President Trump weighs the United States' official involvement and intervention into this conflict. It is clear that while these events escalated very quickly in the last week, Israel's military operations have been swift, strategic, and successful, reducing Iran's response capabilities and establishing their air superiority in the region. It is becoming more apparent that...
Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition.
As we've just learned that the United States of America has become a combatant in the what I call the Persian War.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Well, we entered the war now. At least 3 B-2 bombers dropped on Fordo. That is an awful lot of ammunition. That's almost the equivalent of a small nuclear bomb.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
The Israelis bit off more than they could chew. Let's just be blunt. The Americans came tonight under President Trump in a target package, and I think he's sitting there going, hey, this is it. I want you guys to stand down.
We're at war. They will respond. They will have to respond, and our boys are sitting right off the coast.
We did what no one else could do. This is your fight from here.
It opens Iran up to wanting to attack us back.
We will lose young boys.
You guys take over. We did what no one else could do with the B-52s.
The early satellite imagery, I'm told, shows a complete destruction of that zone. They have not signaled any desire for peace.
Americans are very concerned that this might lead us into the next war.
Any kinetic response would result in extreme destruction in Iran and throughout the Middle East.
There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight.
If the Iranians don't stand down, that's when it's going to get interesting.
Welcome back to our live coverage here at Real America's Voice of the U.S. strike on Iran and everything that comes after it. You're looking live at the briefing room at the Pentagon. 2 podiums are set up. We are about to hear more about last evening's strike on the Iranian nuclear facilities from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kaine. That will start any minute now. Again, I'm Jake Novak. Thank you so much for joining us on Real America's Voice for our live coverage. I'm joined by David Zier in Washington. Frank Gaffney has joined us. And also now we have a special guest joining us now from Jerusalem, Gal Kalev. He is a writer for the Jerusalem Post. He's an expert on security issues. Gal, we know that Israel took the first brunt of a response from Iran, although I don't think you can say this was a specific response to the attack last night because, of course, Israel's been taking similar hits from ballistic missiles and drones from Iran for days now. We know there were 86 people injured, all of those injuries light except for one. So far, how is Israel responding to the news of the strike, and how are they responding to what they might think is maybe even stronger reverberations or responses from Iran, Gal?
Well, good morning. First of all, we are extraordinarily grateful to President Trump and the United States for doing this. We've been we were basically.
All right, I'm going to have to interrupt you, Gal. Here we go. Here's Secretary of Defense Hegseth.
Against 3 nuclear facilities in Iran, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, in order to destroy or severely degrade Iran's nuclear program. And as the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs will demonstrate, it was an incredible and overwhelming.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Last night, on President Trump's orders, U.S. Central Command conducted a precision strike in the middle of the night against 3 nuclear facilities in Iran, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, in order to destroy or severely degrade Iran's nuclear program. And as the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs will demonstrate, it was an incredible and overwhelming success. The order we received from our Commander-in-Chief was focused, it was powerful, and it was clear. We devastated the Iranian nuclear program. But it's worth noting the operation did not target Iranian troops or the Iranian people. For the entirety of his time in office, President Trump has consistently stated for over 10 years that Iran must not get a nuclear weapon. Full stop. Thanks to President Trump's bold and visionary leadership and his commitment to peace through strength, Iran's nuclear ambitions have been obliterated. Many presidents have dreamed of delivering the final blow to Iran's nuclear program, and none could until President Trump. The operation President Trump planned was bold and it was brilliant, showing the world that American deterrence is back. When this president speaks, the world should listen. And the U.S. military, we can back it up. The most powerful military the world has ever known. No other country on planet Earth could have conducted the operation that the chairman is going to outline this morning. Not even close. Just like Soleimani found out in the first term, Iran found out when POTUS says 60 days that he seeks peace and negotiation, he means 60 days of peace and negotiation. Otherwise, that nuclear program, that nuclear capability will not exist. He meant it. This is not the previous administration. The President Trump said no nukes. He seeks peace, and Iran should take that path. He sent out a truth last night saying this: any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. Signed, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Iran would be smart to heed those words. He's said it before, and he means it. I want to give recognition to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Joint Staff, General Eric Kurilla at CENTCOM, who did a phenomenal job, he and his staff, all of CENTCOM. Policy, across the board, this was a joint effort, and across the Pentagon effort. I want to recognize the pilots who flew those bombers, who flew those fighters, who flew those refuelers, warriors. I want to recognize the sailors on those destroyers, in those subs, on those carriers, warriors, all of them. I want to recognize our soldiers doing air defense, base defense, QRF, warriors, all of them. Every American involved in this operation performed flawlessly. And I want to give recognition to our allies in Israel as well. This is a plan that took months and weeks of positioning and preparation so that we could be ready when the President of the United States called. It took a great deal of precision. It involved misdirection, and the highest of operational security. Our B-2s went in and out of downtown Tehran, of these nuclear sites, in and out and back without the world knowing at all. In that way, it was historic. A strike that included the longest B-2 Spirit bomber mission since 2001 and the first operational employment of the MOP, a massive ordnance penetrator. The mission demonstrated to the world the level of joint and allied integration that speak to the strength of our alliance and our joint forces. As President Trump has stated, the United States does not seek war, but let me be clear. We will act swiftly and decisively when our people, our partners, or our interests are threatened. Iran should listen to the President of the United States and know that he means it, every word. I want to give congratulations to our Commander-in-Chief. It was an honor to watch him lead last night and throughout, and to our great American warriors on this successful operation. God bless our troops. God bless America. And we give glory to God for his providence and continue to ask for his protection. I turn it over now to the chairman for specifics.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thanks for recognizing all of our folks out there doing our nation's work, and nice to see everybody on this early Sunday morning. Last night, on the President's orders, U.S. Central Command, under the command of General Eric Kurilla, executed Operation Midnight Hammer, a deliberate and precise strike against 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. This was a complex and high-risk mission carried out with exceptional skill and discipline by our joint force. I want to thank every service member, planner, operator that made this mission possible. Their actions reflect the highest standards of the United States Armed Forces. This operation was designed to severely degrade Iran's nuclear weapons infrastructure. It was planned and executed across multiple domains and theaters with coordination that reflects our ability to project power globally with speed and precision at the time and place of our nation's choosing. This was a highly classified mission with very few people in Washington knowing the timing or nature of this plan. I'll refer you to the graphic on the side as I walk you through some of the operational details. At midnight Friday into Saturday morning, a large B-2 strike package comprised of bombers launched from the continental United States. As part of a plan to maintain tactical surprise, part of the package proceeded to the west and into the Pacific as a decoy, a deception effort known only to an extremely small number of planners and key leaders here in Washington and in Tampa. The main strike package, comprised of 7 B-2 Spirit bombers, each with 2 crew members, proceeded quietly to the east with minimal communications. Throughout the 18-hour flight into the target area, the aircraft completed multiple in-flight refuelings. Once over land, the B-2s linked up with escort and support aircraft in a complex, tightly timed maneuver requiring exact synchronization across multiple platforms in a narrow piece of airspace, all done with minimal communications. This type of integration is exactly what our joint force does better than anyone else in the world. At approximately 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time last night, and just prior to the strike package entering Iran, a U.S. submarine in the Central Command Area of Responsibility launched more than 24 Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles against key surface infrastructure targets at Esfahan. As the Operation Midnight Hammer strike package entered Iranian airspace, the U.S. employed several deception tactics, including decoys, as the 4th and 5th generation aircraft pushed out in front of the strike package at high altitude and high speed, sweeping in front of the package for enemy fighters and surface-to-air missile threats. The strike package was supported by U.S. Strategic Command, U.S. Transportation Command, U.S. Cyber Command, U.S. Space Command, U.S. Space Force, and U.S. European Command. As the strike package approached Fordo and Natanz, the U.S. protection package employed high-speed suppression weapons to ensure safe passage of the strike package, with fighter assets employing preemptive suppressing fires against any potential Iranian surface-to-air threats. We are currently unaware of any shots fired at the U.S. strike package on the way in. At approximately 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2:10 a.m. Iran time, the lead B-2 dropped 2 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator weapons on the first of several aim points at Fordo. As the president stated last night, the remaining bombers then hit their targets as well, with a total of 14 MOPs dropped against 2 nuclear target areas. All 3 Iranian nuclear infrastructure targets were struck between 6:40 p.m. and 7:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, that's about 2:10 in the morning local time in Iran, with the Tomahawk missiles being the last to strike at Esfahan to ensure we retain the element of surprise throughout the operation. Following weapons release, the Midnight Hammer strike package exited Iranian airspace and the package began its return home. We are unaware of any shots fired at the package on the way out. Iran's fighters did not fly, and it appears that Iran's surface-to-air missile systems did not see us. Throughout the mission, we retained the element of surprise. In total, U.S. forces employed approximately 75 precision-guided weapons during this operation. This included, as the president stated last night, 14 30,000-pound GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, marking the first ever operational use of this weapon. I know that battle damage is of great interest. Final battle damage will take some time, but initial battle damage assessments indicate that all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction. More than 125 U.S. aircraft participated in this mission, including B-2 stealth bombers, multiple flights of 4th and 5th generation fighters, dozens and dozens of air refueling tankers, a guided missile submarine, and a full array of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft, as well as hundreds of maintenance and operational professionals. As the Secretary said, this was the largest B-2 operational strike in U.S. history and the second longest B-2 mission ever flown, exceeded only by those in the days following 9/11. Well prior to the strike, General Kurilla elevated force protection measures across the region, especially in Iraq, Syria, and the Gulf. Our forces remain on high alert and are fully postured to respond to any Iranian retaliation or proxy attacks, which would be an incredibly poor choice. We will defend ourselves. The safety of our service members and civilians remains our highest priority. This mission demonstrates the unmatched reach, coordination, and capability of the United States military. In just a matter of weeks, this went from strategic planning to global execution. This operation underscores the unmatched capabilities and global reach of the United States military. As the president clearly said last night, no other military in the world could have done this. I join the president and the secretary in being incredibly proud of the air crews, naval forces, cyber operators, planners, and support teams, and commanders who made this mission possible. It is their skill, discipline, and teamwork that makes this operation possible. I am particularly proud of our discipline related to operational security, something that was of great concern to the President, the Secretary, General Kurilla, and me, and we will continue to focus on this. As we stand here this morning, many assets are still airborne, and we have hundreds deployed. I ask that we keep our warfighters on their way home and our deployed service member in our thoughts. Our joint force remains ready to defend the United States our troops and our interests in the region. Thank you very much.
We will take a few questions, Phil.
Me?
Yeah.
So, is regime change off the table, Mr. Secretary? And to the chairman, you said the battle damage assessment is still ongoing, but do you believe that some nuclear capability in Iran remains?
This mission was not and has not been about regime change. The president authorized a precision operation to neutralize the threats to our national interests posed by the Iranian nuclear program and the collective self-defense of our troops and our ally Israel.
Thanks for your question. I think BDA is still pending, and it would be way too early for me to comment on what may or may not still be there. But thanks for the question.
Green. No, behind you.
Excuse me, Mr. Secretary, can you tell me, was there a particular moment when the president decided to pull the trigger on this operation where he said, now, rather than being, something in the holster, now we're going to pull the trigger on it?
I would just say, having the opportunity to witness his leadership, he was fully committed to the peace process, wanted a negotiated outcome, gave Iran every single opportunity, and unfortunately was met by stonewalling, which is why he gave them plenty of time to continue to come to the table and give up enrichment, give up the nuclear program. But there was I won't say the particular moment, there was certainly a moment in time where he realized that it had to be a certain action taken in order to minimize the threat to us and our troops. Yeah.
General, you say that General Kurilla increased force protection in Iraq, Syria, and Gulf and those areas. Were they given any advance warning the attacks were coming? And also, Mr. Secretary, when were congressional leaders notified? How long before the attacks took place?
Sir, to your first question, the risk has clearly been rising over the last few weeks in the region. Based on that and not a particular awareness of this operation, we've made smart decisions to minimize the risk to U.S. forces in the region.
So they were given no advance warning?
No, sir.
In congressional?
They were notified after the planes were safely out. Well, we complied with the notification requirements of the War Powers Act.
After the attacks, they were notified?
They were immediately thereafter. Yes.
Thank you, Secretary. Two quick questions. Do you believe you completely destroyed Iranian nuclear program? And how about Iranian ballistic missiles? Your ally Israel always saying that is biggest threat. And second question is very important. What will be your next step if Iran or militias under Iranian influence in the region attack U.S. interests or allies in the region?
And you can chime in on this too, Mr. Chairman. The battle damage assessment is ongoing, but our initial assessment, as the chairman said, is that all of our precision munitions struck where we wanted them to strike and had the desired effect. Which means especially in Fordo, which was the primary target here, we believe we achieved destruction of capabilities there. Ultimately, wherever it may be, whether it's in Iraq or Syria or bases in the Gulf, as the president said, it would be, as the chairman said, it would be a very bad idea for Iran or its proxies to attempt to attack American forces. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Regarding retaliations, Iran and North Korea are cooperating on nuclear and missile development. Do you think there is a possibility that Iran, North Korea, and the other forces, such as China, will join forces to retaliate against the United States?
Well, unfortunately, because of the policies under the previous administration, we drove those countries together, and ultimately that creates a challenging environment. For this particular operation, the focus is on Iran and Iranian nuclear capabilities. That's our focus here, is to not just say that they can't have, but President Trump has said from over 20 years, frankly, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And ultimately, he decided this is the moment, given their stonewalling, when direct military action had to be taken to prevent that from happening. Yes.
Thank you very much. General Kaine, I understand OPSEC, I respect OPSEC. Can you say at all what security procedures are being taken to protect U.S. troops in Iraq and elsewhere in the Middle East? And Secretary Hegseth, as a global war on terrorism veteran, what do you say to veterans who may be concerned the U.S. is getting into another open-ended war in the Middle East over weapons of mass destruction?
Thanks, sir, for the question. I won't comment on what force protection measures are being taken in the region. What I will say is we're being proactive and not reactive, and being very thoughtful about ensuring that we do all that we can to protect our forces out there.
And I would just say, as the president has directed and made clear, this is most certainly not open-ended. It doesn't mean it limits our ability to respond. We will respond if necessary. The most powerful military in the world is postured and prepared to defend our people. But what the president gave us, as I said, was a focused, powerful, and clear mission on the destruction of Iranian nuclear capabilities. Those were the targets. That's what was struck. That's what was overwhelming. That's what was overwhelming. That's what the Iranian regime needs to understand, as the president put out last night. He wants peace. There needs to be a negotiated settlement here. We ultimately demonstrated that Iran cannot have a nuclear capability. That is a very clear mission set on this operation. Yes, hold on. Yes, right there.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Question for the Secretary and the Chairman. How was this strike coordinated with the Israelis on a strategic level, militarily, and on a tactical level? Was there any direct Israeli military participation in this operation?
Well, I would say certainly Israel had an incredible military success, especially at the beginning and ongoing, in degrading Iranian capabilities, in degrading Iranian launchers, MRBMs. It's been incredible to watch what our ally Israel has been able to do. And there certainly have been conversations. I mean, General Kurilla at CENTCOM has worked closely in the defense of Israel for many years. And part of this operation was the defense of Israel and the ongoing defense of Israel. But as it pertains to this strike, this was U.S. operated and U.S. led.
We took advantage of some of the preparatory work that's been done over the past week and a half in terms of axis of approach. I won't get into the particulars, but as the Secretary said, it was a U.S. strike. We made sure we were not in the same piece of airspace and sky. Aside from that, that was the extent of it.
We'll take a couple more. Yeah, right there.
Question to the Secretary first. Are you concerned whatsoever now about the reaction from U.S. allies given the strike, particularly those in the Gulf? And to the Chairman, if I may, I understand you don't want to speak to specific assets and force protection measures, but do you anticipate at least having to bring in any further assets from other theaters to aid in force protection over the coming days?
We certainly understand the challenges of allies in the region, and we have been respectful and working in collaboration with them as it pertains to basing and sensitivities there. Ultimately, they've got a lot of assets and people in those locations also where American troops are co-located. So that's a consideration of ours. We've been in close consultation with them, and we appreciate the support that we have got.
Thanks for the question on sort of the global picture. And as you know, that's one of my jobs, is to look globally at the entire range of challenges. We are always carefully considering our force posture and to the president. I won't comment on any future things, but the American people should know that we carefully consider those moves around the world and try to modulate as needed our force structure in the region.
Absolutely. Yeah, right here.
Thank you. What communications are being sent to the Iranians right now, and is there any possibility of diplomacy now or in the coming days?
I can only confirm that there are both public and private messages being directly delivered to the Iranians in multiple channels, giving them every opportunity to come to the table. They understand precisely what the American position is, precisely what steps they can take to allow for peace, and we hope they do so. Yes.
The president may not want an open-ended conflict. The Iranians may disagree. Are you prepared for a protracted war?
well, anything can happen in conflict, we acknowledge that, but the scope of this was intentionally limited. That's the message that we're sending. With the capabilities of the American military nearly unlimited. So Iran, in that sense, has a choice. But we've made it very clear to them, this is nuclear sites, this is nuclear capabilities, this is the line that the president set, and we set that back. Now is the time to come forward for peace, but I think one of the takeaways from this as well is the unprecedented level of ongoing cooperation. I can't speak highly enough of the chairman and his staff and General Kurilla in CENTCOM, what they've done to look around the corner, to pre-position, to understand how an operation like this comes together. The scope and scale of what occurred last night would take the breath away of almost any American if you had an opportunity to watch it in real time. And I think Tehran is certainly calculating the reality that planes flew from the middle of America in Missouri overnight, completely undetected over 3 of their most highly sensitive sites, and we were able to destroy nuclear capabilities. And our boys in those bombers are on their way home right now. We believe that'll have a clear psychological impact on how they view the future, and we certainly hope they take the path of negotiated peace. But I could not be more proud of how this building operated, of the precision, the sensitivity, and the professionalism of the troops involved in this effort. I will take one more. We'll take one more question. Yes, right there.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Concerning the justification for these strikes, in March, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released their threat assessment, concluding, quote, Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Kaine has not authorized the nuclear programs he suspended in 2003, unquote. So what new intelligence does the U.S. have since then that the Iranians have changed their position on nuclear weapons? And does this new intelligence come from U.S. sources and methods, or are we getting this information from other countries?
Well, I would just simply say that the president's made it very clear. He's looked at all of this, all of the intelligence, all of the information, and come to the conclusion that the Iranian nuclear program is a threat, and was willing to take this precision operation to neutralize that threat in order to advance American national interests, reduce the Iranian nuclear program, and obviously collective self-defense of ourselves and our allies. So he looked at all of it, understood the nature of the threat, and took bold action I think the American people would expect in a commander-in-chief. That's all we've got. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, do you have any of the WC-135s up to check for radioactive material in the atmosphere?
You've been watching live coverage. That was Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kaine explaining the situation, I think, as best as they could. News media, and some of those questions were not exactly on point, as you may have noticed, not really getting the gist of everything. I'm Jake Novak. You've been watching live coverage, and we're going to continue with our live coverage here on Real America's Voice of the U.S. strike on Iran. Joining me right now are David Zier in Washington, D.C., Frank Gaffney, the host of Securing America here on Real America's Voice, and a special guest who's just joined us, Gal Kalev from Jerusalem. And Gal, I just want to get your perspective. You were in the middle of answering my question about how Israel is responding, how Israelis are responding, not only to the attack last night of the U.S. on the Iranian nuclear sites, but the perceived and expected Iranian response to them. Of course, Israel will be at the tip of the spear of that.
Yeah, we are, as I mentioned, grateful to President Trump. Last week, the German chancellor said that Israel is the one who's doing the dirty work for the entire Western world by taking down the Iranian threat. Last night, we saw it's now America who's doing the dirty work for the entire Western world. America is much safer. Israel is much safer today. And so is the rest of the world. So I hope that just as we are in Israel thanking the president and the troops and the United States for doing this, so are other people around the Western world.
Gal, let's address the elephant in the room, because since the beginning of time almost, but certainly since the beginning of this conflict or the rising of the threat from Iran, you've heard the people say that this is just something the United States is doing for quote-unquote Israel. Would you like to explain, I don't know if you want to explain politics or thermonuclear weapons, because there's no such thing in a nuclear conflict where only one nation the size of New Jersey is going to be affected.
Absolutely. First of all, just a suggestion is insulting to the President of the United States. President Trump made it clear from the beginning he's going to do what is best for America. Israel expects nothing else out of that. Every country, every leader needs to do what's best for their country, and President Trump is certainly doing that. But look, Iran having a nuclear bomb doesn't mean that it's only going to direct it into Israel. It has the delivery capabilities to direct it to the United States, to Europe, and elsewhere. And it's not just, the fact that, they're going to launch the bomb. It's the fear of the bomb. I mean, are we going to go to football games or baseball games if there is some sort of threat of a bomb? Some of us, like me, who are old enough to remember the 1980s and the threat of a Russian nuclear war, there was a certain degree of tension. Take that by a multiple of 100, because Russia didn't say clearly we're going to bomb America, we're going to destroy America, we're going to end America. Iran says it clearly. So the threat of a nuclear Iran is monumental. The threat of Iran having ballistic missiles, which it already has, is big, because the people in the United States and in Europe are watching those Iranian missiles flying into Israeli homes, into Israeli hospitals, and destroying them, including this morning, including in my own hometown neighborhood. So, people are watching how those missiles are murdering Jews, are destroying homes, are destroying neighborhoods, and understand that could be neighborhoods in Europe, and later, as Iran continues its programs, neighborhoods in the United States. So this is a clear and present threat to the United States. As Secretary Hegseth said, the president determined that this cannot wait; it needs to happen now, and that's what happened. And I think everybody should be grateful for the president. And for this restoring deterrence, as the secretary said.
Yeah, I mean, what we're dealing with here now is a tremendous new paradigm, but not new in the sense that we haven't seen this threat for a long time. I've heard people say, and David Zier said this, that since 2015, and I know Frank Gaffney said it as well, that since 2015, President Trump has made it clear that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I actually saw a statement, guys, from him from 2011, 14 years ago, saying that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. The idea that this is something that was pressured onto him by a small foreign country, which isn't even in the top 20 of countries that donate money to American candidates, although you can't directly do that anyway, a foreign nation cannot do that, is just ludicrous. Sadly, Muslim Brotherhood and Islamist-aligned donors in this country and other countries absolutely dwarf the donations of just about anyone else, let alone another foreign country as small as Israel. So let's just stop with those kinds of that kind of talk. And as Gal said, that is really insulting to President Trump, who, of course, is, in addition to being the most powerful man in the world, is also one of the wealthiest. I want to bring in Mark. Mark, you were here for a lot of this last night. You were talking with us. Mark, tell us what are some of your initial reactions, not only to this attack, but what you just heard from Secretary Hegseth and General Kaine. Mark.
Sure. Good morning, Jake and everyone. Look, obviously, Secretary Hegseth and the chairman laid out what was a brilliantly executed military plan. I mean, imagine, these pilots on B-2 bombers flying 18 hours undetected, mid-air refuelings to reach their targets. It was brilliant. It was amazing. American military might is the best in the world, and Donald Trump is clearly leading with his commitment to peace through strength. Look, this is not ideal in a lot of ways that we had to be put in this position, and I think there are some neocons on the right who are thrilled today. There are some jihadists who are ready to seek revenge against us. So I think there are consequences ahead. Who knows what this means, for instance, for Syria or for Afghanistan? Hopefully, and I believe that this sends a signal that we want peace, and Donald Trump's going to do whatever it takes to reach peace. Remember, on the tarmac in Morristown, New Jersey on Friday, he said, I'm a peacemaker, but sometimes you have to show strength to achieve peace. And Donald Trump clearly put those words into action last night. Look, at the bottom line is, I trust Donald Trump. I trust this president to lead America. He's got insights and information and intelligence that we don't have access to. And it ultimately, I trust the leadership of President Trump and believe in what he's doing. But for certain, it's going to be a time where the consequences are yet to be seen. Hopefully, the Iranians will realize their nuclear capabilities are decimated. They're gone, and they don't have that capability anymore to use against the Middle East, Israel, and the rest of the world.
Yeah, as a number of those journalists who did ask a good question, they wanted to know about the battle damage assessment on the sites in Iran. And of course, we weren't given anything definitive for understandable reasons from General Kaine. But we do have video that was taken presumably by Iranians of Fordow. Now, Fordow is a remote site, but it's not all that remote. There is a highway where the site can be seen from. And if you take a look at this video now, look, obviously you could have very spectacular fires and very spectacular video and smoke from something that still is not completely destroyed. Again, I know that's redundant. It's not totally taken out. However, that looks bad, guys. I mean, Frank Gaffney, look at that explosion. I can't believe, maybe they didn't destroy everything underground there, but I can't believe that humans anywhere near that site can get anywhere near that site in the coming days or weeks or months or maybe even years. This feels very, very, very devastating to me as I look at that video. I don't think I need to be too much of a military expert to say that looks pretty devastating. What do you think, Frank?
I have no independent way of judging it, but I think your gut instinct is right. And what almost certainly happened, whether every single part of that deeply buried facility was, destroyed in the sense of being blown up, I have to believe that it's now, at best, a sealed mausoleum for those who were working in it. They're not going anywhere if they didn't actually die in the immediate attack. And it speaks again to something that we talked about earlier, Jake, excuse me, namely the extent to which we were able, on the basis of very important intelligence, some of it I'm quite certain came from Israel, and I'd like to think some of it came from our own sources. But it strains credulity. And one of the press guys asked this question: what about this statement that the United States intelligence community, as best I can tell, continues to stand by? That they didn't have a program, they gave it up in 2003, and there's simply no evidence that they were moving forward with, and particularly imminent nuclear weapons program. The president quite rightly said the other day he doesn't agree with that. He said Tulsi Gabbard was wrong, and Pete Hegseth today, I think, reinforced the point. And everybody looking at that battle damage over the coming days is going to have, I think, the kind of questions that I have, which is, what on earth has been going on with U.S. intelligence in this connection?
Yeah, David Zier, you're in Washington, D.C. You can already see some of the Democrats coming out, taking that line, talking about how this was unprovoked, talking about how this was not necessary, talking about impeaching President Trump. I mean, we've talked about for weeks now the insane hills that Democrats have decided to die on in their battles against President Trump. Hills that include going over to El Salvador, and in those places like El Salvador, and meeting with an accused human trafficker, sitting in detention centers with people who have been in college for 17 years and harassing Jewish students on campus. These are the people who are their heroes. Are they going to die on yet another hill here in favor of Iran? I mean, is there any level to which these Democrats won't stoop to attack President Trump? If he says 2 + 2 = 4, will they have a violent protest to say it's 5? Because we're getting in that territory, aren't we, David Zier?
Yeah, and Iranian media was playing AOC last night on X, with her comments that Trump should be impeached. And they were also saying that there were just tunnel entrances damaged, that there was no damage to these facilities. That video, I would beg to differ with that, just seeing that. But there's been a lot of firsts under Donald Trump. I just wanted to add, these 7 B-2 bombers, 18-hour flights with multiple in-flight refuelings. It was no shots fired at them during the strike package. They dropped 420,000 pounds of bombs on these targets. not including all the TLAM 1,000-pound warheads, Tomahawks with a 1,300-mile range. And this was the longest B-2 Spirit mission since 2001, when the B-2s from the 509th Bomb Wing in Whiteman Air Force Base flew 3 days of missions, 44-hour missions in Afghanistan in the early days of the Operation Enduring Freedom. And I just wanted to add, Trump, there's a lot of firsts under Trump. This is the biggest use of conventional munitions ever, but up until this point, this year, the largest ever aircraft carrier launched strike was off the USS Harry S. Truman over there, and 16 F-18s took off and bombed al-Shabaab and ISIS operatives in a cave network in Somalia with 125,000 pounds of conventional bombs. So Trump making easy work of radical terrorists. Maybe we're not entrenched in forever wars. Very serious stuff here. And, you know, we've been hitting al-Shabaab all week. It hasn't got media attention. And ISIS in Somalia on June 14th, the 15th, the 16th, and maybe more. These types of strikes may be ongoing, but this mission was just an incredible feat.
And one of the first things we learned in this news conference today was the name of the mission, Operation Midnight Hammer. Remember that name. You're watching live coverage here on Real America's Voice on Operation Midnight Hammer. We'll continue with more live coverage when we come right back.
When surprise breakdowns happen, American Home Shield will be there to fix or replace parts of the systems and appliances you rely on every day. They help protect your time and money by connecting you with qualified pros and helping pay for covered repairs or replacements. AHS offers flexible and affordable plans for every home. Sign up today and get $100 off with code AHS100. Visit AHS.com or call 833-PLAN-AHS.
You push it. You try to slide it. You even try to hold them shut. But your doors just won't stay closed no matter what. Introducing Ruby Monkey Magnets. Brand new ultra-thin magnetic plates that will keep your doors and drawers shut. And now may be your last chance to get them at a low price. Just peel to reveal the super strong adhesive. Place the monkey, then the magnet, and close. Installation is that simple, and now you have a door that will stay shut. So forget drawers that won't stay closed. Every drawer stays closed. It's so fast and so easy. Even large sliding doors or cordless window blinds. Everything stays closed with Monkey Magnets. The secret is the ultra-strong industrial magnet that's powerful attraction keeps your doors and drawers securely shut. These magnets are so strong they can hold this hammer that's nearly 5 pounds. Plus they're super thin. They'll fit just about anywhere, and they stay out of sight. Even screw them in for a more permanent solution. Monkey Magnets are perfect for cabinets, dresser drawers, sliding closet doors, accordion doors, and more. They're made of ultra-durable metal, so even your outdoor problems are solved in an instant because they're corrosion and rust resistant. Use them anywhere outside the house, even on that stubborn mailbox that won't stay shut. Monkey Magnets can stick anywhere, from drywall to all types of wood frames, metal surfaces, and more. Call or go online now to get 8 sets of Monkey Magnets for only $9.99. Monkey Magnets are guaranteed to last 10 years or your money back. But wait, due to rising costs and supply chain shortages, this may be your last chance to get Monkey Magnets at this low price. There is a strict limit of 1 full house pack per order while supplies last. So order now to keep all your doors and drawers shut tight with Monkey Magnets.
Call 1-800-519-4810. That's 1-800-519-4810. Call or visit getmonkeymagnets.com. So call 1-800-519-4810. Order now.
Did you know that thousands of authors across the country have written books and published them with Page Publishing? If you've written a book, Page can help you through the process. We cut through the confusion of the publishing world to make it easy for you. If we decide to publish your book, your work ends and ours begins. From copy editing and proofing to typesetting and book cover art, we get you printed, distributed, and sold on Amazon, Apple iTunes, and bookstores. We'll even promote your book.
Call 1-800-319-0257. That's 1-800-319-0257.
U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime. God bless the Middle East, God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Operation Midnight Hammer. You're looking at a live shot of the old city of Jerusalem. That is the Western Wall in the foreground. And of course, the skies over Jerusalem will be a focal point today as the world looks to see what kind of response Israel will take. There were Iranian missile and drone launches overnight. 86 people were injured, all but one of them light injuries. But Iran still has some missile firing capabilities, although Israel is working very hard to take them out, and the United States taking out those nuclear facilities last evening. I want to bring in our panel. We have Frank Gaffney from Securing America. We have Mark Serrano, RAP contributor. We have David Zier in Washington. And we also have Gal Kalev from Jerusalem. I want to go to Mark first. Mark, you're a messaging expert. And something I said a while ago this morning was that you can have all the military expertise in the world, all the military advantages in the world. You can have all the political capital in the world. But if you don't have a leader who explains to the American people exactly what is going on, why he has put our troops in harm's way, although I do think this is a minor risk, et cetera, then it doesn't matter. You have to have a leader who can really articulate these things. With all due respect, I don't think President George W. Bush did that as well as he could have during the global war on terror. I think President Trump last night, again, love him or hate him, couldn't have been clearer and couldn't have been standing on stronger moral ground and rhetorical ground. He was very clear with the American public, Mark.
Sure, Jake. Look at the psychological warfare that Donald Trump used all week long. Well, I might bomb them. I might not bomb them. We're going to take 2 weeks and give Iran a chance to come to its senses. He's the master of psychological warfare, and he employed that all week long. And in fact, you had some of these B-2 bombers that were shown going to Guam, which obviously was a feint to draw everyone's attention that way. But he's also, I think, something for us to take a look at is if you consider this past decade in America, Donald Trump has completely reconfigured American politics. He's flipped it on its head, where the elites are no longer in power. He's done it with the news media, where new media, like Real America's Voice, is now obviously on the rise. And legacy media, corporate media, they're completely discredited. Well, Donald Trump also, and he did this in his first term brilliantly, he was able to use economic leverage against our adversaries worldwide like no one has ever done before, which is why he uses peace through strength. He's not looking for a new war. And now I think what we're seeing potentially here is Donald Trump also redefining warfare, where he was very limited, he was very restrained, just like he did in Syria in his first term. Very, very strategic strikes, very limited, very restrained, so he hopefully can get the effect he's seeking, which is eliminate the nuclear capability of Iran, get them to the table to negotiate peace, so that way we can see peace throughout the Middle East. One other thing about this, Jake, if you remember in President Trump's first term, his first trip overseas in May of 2017 was to the Middle East to address all the leaders of the Middle East. And what did he do in that meeting, in that conference? He said, look, we can continue to fight over all of our differences, but why don't we all come to terms on something we can agree on, which is we've got to be opposed, all of us, the United States, our allies, the entire Middle East, all of the moderate Arab nations, they all agreed on one thing. We can't have a nuclear Iran. That was in May of 2017. His first international trip as president was to deliver that message that says we must all agree there can't be a nuclear Iran.
Mark, I want to bring in now Gal Kalev from Jerusalem. Gal, on Thursday, when the president announced and Caroline Levitt announced that within 2 weeks' decision, there were a number of enemies of Israel, both overseas and even here in the United States, who were dancing a little jig. They were patting themselves on the back. They thought they had dissuaded President Trump and stopped him from standing up decisively. And the first thing that came to my mind was an Israeli phrase, was "you friars." In Israeli parlance, that basically means "you suckers." You really believe they're going to get 2 weeks? I think a lot of us knew it was going to be 2 days. And Gal, was there any thought in Israel on Thursday to Saturday that, oh no, we've lost our friend President Trump?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the President Trump continues to provide us with the ammunition and the support. There was a thought that maybe we need to do this by ourselves, and this will take longer at a higher price, and we're prepared to do that because our defense doctrine has always been that we want to defend ourselves by ourselves. There's certain things we cannot do, so this is obviously a game changer. But I think what you alluded to earlier is that we in Israel are really facing a dual threat. There's the physical threat that we've been facing from Iran and its proxies, which is much weaker now, after we've taken down some of its proxies in Gaza, in Syria, and certainly after what President Trump did today. But there's also a secondary threat, which is the ideological threat coming from Europe and its proxies. And what you said earlier is right on messages. There is, if you look at the Democratic Party, all of a sudden over the last few years, there's been very, very strong anti-Israel messages. We're in the midst of an attempt to negate the whole idea of the Jewish state and through it to negate the idea of Judaism. And we've seen it across the board. And we see it, sadly, in the way that Democratic money is being reflected. Years ago, if you were running for Congress, you needed to make all sorts of strong statements about how you support Israel. And now, if you're running for Congress as a Democrat, to get funding, you need to make all sorts of support, how Israel is the bad guy, how you oppose this and that. So I think what we're going to see out of it is not just, the President Trump revolutionized warfare. I completely agree with that. But I think he's also going to revolutionize the peace thinking in the Middle East, which until now was very defensive and really defeatist. Oh, well, divide the baby. We'll give you this land if you agree, not to attack us for a few years. We'll beg you a bit harder. I think President Trump, with his concept of peace through strength, is changing that, and we're going to move from silly slogan-based frameworks like two-state solutions to frameworks that are based on win-win, like the Abraham Accords under the president's leadership, where all parties can benefit. What we've seen today is both the ability of the United States to exert power, so as was said, first comes strength, then comes peace, but also to remove a threat that would enable other actors to make peace on a totally different basis and frameworks than we were used to until now.
Yeah. David Zier, you're in Washington, D.C., and we've talked about this already during this program a little bit about how the Democrats seem to now starting. I mean, I thought that as the hours rolled by this morning, we would see a few more Democrats come out in support of the attack on Iran. It looks like I was wrong. I'm seeing more and more of them deciding to take what I believe is a politically suicidal stance against these attacks. They come out sounding very much supportive of Iran. They'll claim that they're not, but at the same time, they're trying to, straddle that fence, David. Look, I can't believe, let's put it this way. I can't believe how easy President Trump's enemies in this country are making it for him. If you're telling me that the choices between them and their support of illegal aliens, their support of human traffickers, their support of Iran, their support of Hamas, their support of people who are harassing people on college campuses, and the people that they're not harassing are still having a hard time getting to class, how can you not begrudgingly support President Trump? This is why his approval rating in the only survey I really trust, Scott Rasmussen, Neapolitan News, who had President Trump's approval before this attack at 53%. I think it's going to be in the high 50s next time he does a survey in a week. David, they can't be making it this easy for President Trump, are they?
I think they are making it that easy. And just to draw a comparison, we were joking during the break. Brandon Jarvis, our very talented cameraman, sent me a meme of pallets of cash, next to Trump talking to the Supreme Ayatollah in Iran. And he said, "How much do you want?" He said, "Billions." So, instead of pallets of cash, he sent, the bombs in. But this was the legacy of Barack Obama. Right, up to $2 billion at least on pallets of cash. That's the image, and you got these GBU-57 munitions, and then put that against the cash that was going in here. And the Democratic national chairman, Ken Martin was very critical here, and he says we measure our success not only by the battles we win, referring to what Trump said earlier in the year, but also by the wars that we end, and most importantly, the wars we never go into. But Ken Martin said, against his own words, the president sent bombers into Iran. It also drew criticism from Senator Peter Welch, a Vermont Democrat, about the U.S. entering the war does not make America more secure. And then we got Virginia Senator Tim Kaine. Horrible judgment, push all senators for a vote on whether they are in for this third idiotic Middle East war. And many others on top of that have lined up here. But I think they're hedging their bets. Even Ro Khanna joined the choir, and he's been somewhat reasonable on some things here. He introduced legislation with Thomas Massie, though, called on Republicans to terminate the use of armed forces against Iran unless explicitly authorized by Congress to go to war. So, you know, there's no shortage of this. Of course, they're going to use this as a campaign, hedging their bets. Because, you know, we talked about yesterday the fog of war with Bannon. You know, things go wrong. Things happen. We had $200 million in fighters lost in the deck of the Harry S. Truman since December. You know, we had a Houthi cruise missile come within 1 mile or a half a mile of the Harry S. Truman. And if it wasn't for our 20-millimeter close-in weapon systems, the phalanx, you know, which puts up basically a wall of steel of rounds, the Truman may have been hit. These things can happen. Now we have 3 carrier groups in there, and maybe later we could talk about the Gulf states preparing for war. U.S. evacuating the base in Qatar, the biggest base, you know, over there, I think, in the Middle East for the U.S. So, you know, a lot to be concerned about. But the Democrats, you know, it's easy for them, right? They just had the JCPOA, which was failed policy, and now Iran is not a nuclear threat, apparently.
Yeah, let's take a little bit of a time out right now. We are reporting live here on Real America's Voice on Operation Midnight Hammer. Remember that name. We'll have more discussion from all of our experts here on Real America's Voice when we come right back.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Join the over 2 million Americans who love this country. Join the over 2 million members who love America. Join AMAC.
There's nothing worse than losing your dog before their time. So why do so many dog foods contain awful things a human would never eat? To save his pets, world-famous veterinarian Dr. Marty knew he had to change what was in their bowl.
That's why I created Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, my breakthrough formula that's changed everything about dog food.
Nature's Blend contains nothing but all-natural ingredients, designed to help dogs with everything from digestive issues to itching and policking, even moving around better. And that's because Nature's Blend is freeze-dried. So instead of destroying the nutrients with high heat, we gently preserve them, and you'll see the difference in your dog.
Take it from a veterinarian with over 50 years of experience saving dogs' lives. I have never seen a food make this much impact on a dog's health.
Such a huge difference in her health. More energy, more playful, no more pooping issues. He's healthier, he looks better.
Dr. Marty has thousands of 5-star reviews. And for a limited time, get up to 54% off Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, plus a free gift with our special TV offer. Call or go to drmartypets.com/TV. That's drmartypets.com/TV.
Are you having trouble hearing your TV or listening to conversations in loud spaces? Then it might be time to consider Nano hearing aids. The days of expensive hearing aids are over. Nanos are FDA-registered OTC hearing aids. They are powerful, lightweight, and simple to use, and their tiny in-ear design makes them nearly invisible. Plus, they are rechargeable, saving you hundreds of dollars on batteries. Don't be fooled by overpriced hearing aids. Prescription hearing aids could cost $3,000 or more. Nano hearing aids are only $397. But wait, we are so confident you are going to love your Nanos, we are offering $100 off through this special TV offer. Call now and get 2 CIC rechargeable hearing aids for only $297. You get a free portable charging case, free 24/7 lifetime telephone support, free shipping, and a 45-day money-back guarantee.
Call 800-226-2107. That's 800-226-2107.
As we've just learned,
that the United States of America has become a combatant in the what I call the Persian War.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Well, we entered the war now. At least 3 B-2 bombers dropped on Fordo. That is an awful lot of ammunition. That's almost the equivalent of a small nuclear bomb.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
The Israelis bit off more than they could chew. Let's just be blunt. The Americans came tonight under President Trump in a target package, and I think he's sitting there going, hey, this is it. I want you guys to stand down.
We're at war. They will respond. They will have to respond, and our boys are sitting right off the coast.
We did what no one else could do. This is your fight from here.
It opens Iran up to wanting to attack us back.
We will lose young boys.
You guys take over. We did what no one else could do with the B-52s.
The early satellite imagery, I'm told, shows a complete destruction of that zone. They have not signaled any desire for peace.
Americans are very concerned that this might lead us into the next war.
Any kinetic response would result in extreme destruction in Iran and throughout the Middle East.
There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight.
If the Iranians don't stand down, that's when it's going to get interesting.
Welcome to Real America's Voice, our special coverage as we begin our 3rd hour of live coverage this morning of Operation Midnight Hammer. In the last hour, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth told us that that was the name of the operation. So did Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kaine. And that is now, of course, a name that we can all use to reference this. We no longer have to say U.S. strike on Iran or whatever we want to call it. I am joined by a panel of some great experts. I have David Zier in Washington, D.C. I have Frank Gaffney, host of Securing America. I have RAV contributor Mark Serrano. And from Jerusalem, Israel, we have Gal Kalev. Frank Gaffney, I want to go to you first because, you know, we saw this also in that animated teaser we just saw. Of course, our first concern this morning is the safety of the American people, the safety of American troops. I am no person who likes to whistle past graveyards, but I have to say that, look, our American troops are trained for this. They know that they're in harm's way the second they deploy. They're in harm's way when they do training exercises here in the United States. The idea that we should be pushing this scaremongering message, especially on our fighting men and women, I find that a little distasteful right now. I trust their courage. I trust their training. Of course, if I can join in the chorus of threatening Iran and anyone else wants to attack us not to do it, I'm certainly going to do that. Frank Gaffney, we've been prepared for this for a long time, haven't we?
Well, it's something we're prepared for in a sense, but I don't think we're taking all of the steps that we can to protect our personnel in the region, to help protect Israel, and not least protect against the possibility that, as we've been discussing throughout the morning, Iranian sleeper cells, Hezbollah elements, the front organizations of Iran, and not least now assassination squads that we know are inside our country. We're not protecting against those, as we must, I believe, by taking a step that would be potentially absolutely decisive in preventing any of those things from going sideways, namely ending the regime, what's left of it, in Iran. And I'm not talking about regime change, which means that we're going to go in and we're going to tell the Iranians what's coming next, who's going to run their country, how it's going to be governed. I'm talking about free Iran. And if we act now, as we are apparently waiting for some prospective deal with that mullahocracy that will conduce to peace, there's no such thing. At the very best, it means a postponement of the next round of the violence with them, because they are determined to destroy this country. That's what they're all about, these Sharia supremacists in general, and the Ayatollahs in particular. So, Jake, I would just say, if we want to actually not just be prepared, but we want to be taking the steps that will almost certainly impede orders being given by these various elements to attack us, to attack our personnel, to attack our allies, We need to ensure that the Israelis are free to take out this government. Doing otherwise legitimizes the regime. It signals to the Israelis that they have to keep their hands off what's left of, the mulocracy. And third, most especially, it signals to the people of Iran that once again the United States wants to keep going this horrific government that has oppressed them so terribly and threatens us. For none of those reasons should we be persisting in the pursuit of negotiations with these guys, with the possible exception of insisting and accepting their unconditional surrender.
Thank you, Frank. I want to bring in Mark Serrano because, Mark, I like talking to you about messaging. And, Frank mentioned this, I think it was the last hour here, or at least he alluded to it. The Barack Obama administration, early on in his administration, his first year in office in 2009, it was really just within months of him taking the oath of office, a popular uprising began in Iran calling for democracy. He not once said a word, even in encouragement of it, let alone doing anything tactically on the ground to help. When President Trump was president in his first term, a massive amount of violent protests, they became violent because the regime started to push back on them, against the Iranian regime began. President Trump did speak out in support of it, unlike Barack Obama. And Iran basically felt very free, maybe because COVID was beginning here in the United States, or at least the lockdowns of COVID. And they not only killed many of those Iranian protesters who, again, for those of you who are wondering why the Iranian people aren't going into the streets right now, understand the last time they did, they were literally killed. And worse than that, Mark Serrano, there are many credible reports that the thugs who killed the Iranian protesters in 2019 went to the homes of the families of the people they killed and gave them a bill for the bullets that were used to kill them. Mark Serrano, in the face of all that, what kind of messaging can President Trump give now? Not just because I think he gave a great message to the American people. How about a message to the Iranian people that you would craft if you were doing that as a public relations, as a communications expert?
Sure. And Jake, let's go back to the Ronald Reagan era. Remember what Ronald Reagan did with messaging. He defined the Soviet Union as the evil empire. And he spoke eloquently about America being the shining city on a hill. Think about that disparity, that contrast. That sends a signal to the world that America is a beacon of light. We are the last great hope on earth for freedom, for our God-given rights, and there is evil in this world. President Trump basically was making up for all of Barack Obama's deficiencies. What did he do? He had a policy of appeasement. He didn't speak out during that Iranian uprising where the people in the streets wanted freedom. They were desperate for freedom. And yet propaganda can be used for good. You can speak to the Iranian people, and I believe President Trump will do this, about their potential for freedom. 90 million people have the hope and the chance for their God-given rights to be embraced and respected. Perhaps this is that moment where they can finally have that. And we've got great experts on here. Frank Gaffney is a terrific expert, and he's got all the respect in the world for me. My only concern is that I think if there is a plan for regime change, that's on Israel, that the United States can no longer be in that business, especially considering what got President Trump into power, into office, was a base of voters who said, no more forever wars, no regime.
We may have lost Mark Serrano there for a second. I want to go to Gal Kalev, though, because Mark, he just tossed the ball into your court, saying it's on Israel now for regime change. Tell us a little bit about Israel's very, very intimate connections with Iran that started well before the fall of the Shah and continue now with a significant Persian Jewish community in Israel. Many of those communities live in the same neighborhoods. They were asked by the Israeli government when they came to Israel in 1979 and 1980 to remain on the same blocks with one another so they would keep their dialects the same, so they would be able to be fantastic resources for surveillance, things like that. This is not Israel flying blind. I mean, they do have the support of people like Reza Pahlavi, who is the son of the Shah, who died many years ago. Israel can help with regime change, can't it?
Yeah, and while we did not define regime change as one of the objectives of the war, the prime minister and others have made clear that we will be happy if that's the outcome. It's up to the Iranian people, and we certainly providing the help and support for them to do that. We have a great relationship with the Iranian people, and we had a great relationship with the Iranian government until 1979, until the Ayatollahs took over. And we are made clear that this is not a war against the Iranian people. It's a war against this murderous regime that mass murders people both now and throughout the last 45 years. And you're completely correct. We have a lot of Israeli Jews. I have a lot of friends who are Persians, who are were either born there or their parents were born there. And you're correct. We've leveraged that very effectively. So this war is not about boots on the grounds of American troops, but it's certainly about maybe Adidas sneakers of Israeli Mossad agents on the ground, because the Israeli Mossad has built a very, very prolific operation in Iran, much thanks to those Iranian Jews who moved to Israel.
Jay, can I just clarify one point?
Well, we do have to go to break, Frank, so I'll get you when we come back from the other side of the break. Gal Kalev, he has to leave us now from Jerusalem. We thank you for your expertise and your voice from Israel, where, of course, you are the tip of the spear. We'll be right back with more of our live coverage of Operation Midnight Hammer here on Real America's Voice. Thanks for watching.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Join the over 2 million Americans who love this country. Join the over 2 million members who love America. Join AMAC.
There's nothing worse than losing your dog before their time. So why do so many dog foods contain awful things a human would never eat? To save his pets, world-famous veterinarian Dr. Marty knew he had to change what was in their bowl.
That's why I created Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, my breakthrough formula that's changed everything about dog food.
Nature's Blend contains nothing but all-natural ingredients designed to help dogs with everything from digestive issues to itching and paw licking, even moving around better. And that's because Nature's Blend is freeze-dried. So instead of destroying the nutrients with high heat, we gently preserve them, and you'll see the difference in your dog.
Take it from a veterinarian with over 50 years of experience saving dogs' lives. I have never seen a food make this much impact on a dog's health.
Such a huge difference in her health. More energy, more playful, no more pooping issues. He's healthier, he looks better.
Dr. Marty has thousands of 5-star reviews. And for a limited time, get up to 54% off Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, plus a free gift with our special TV offer. Call or go to drmartypets.com/TV. That's drmartypets.com/TV.
Are you having trouble hearing your TV or listening to conversations in loud spaces? Then it might be time to consider Nano hearing aids. The days of expensive hearing aids are over. Nanos are FDA-registered OTC hearing aids. They are powerful, lightweight, and simple to use, and their tiny in-ear design makes them nearly invisible. Plus, they are rechargeable, saving you hundreds of dollars on batteries. Don't be fooled by overpriced hearing aids. Prescription hearing aids could cost $3,000 or more. Nano hearing aids are only $397. But wait, we are so confident you are going to love your Nanos, we are offering $100 off through this special TV offer. Call now and get 2 CIC rechargeable hearing aids for only $297. You get a free portable charging case, free 24/7 lifetime telephone support, free shipping, and a 45-day money-back guarantee.
Call 800-226-2107. That's 800-226-2107.
The U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime. God bless the Middle East, God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to Real America's Voice, our live coverage, and we have a name for it now, of Operation Midnight Hammer. That is what the U.S. military has dubbed last night's attack on the 3 key Iranian nuclear sites. Secretary of State Pete Hegseth and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kaine telling us that those sites were indeed destroyed, but the battle damage assessment is not ready yet exactly from the detailed point of view. But as we've seen video of at least the explosions of Fordow, can't possibly think there's going to be much going in and out of that site for much longer. We went to break, and Frank Abney wanted to make a point before we went to break. So, Frank, I'm going to give you the floor right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to follow up, clarifying my own position on this. Mark was talking about us not being in the business of regime change, and I agree with that. I think especially this idea that we're somehow going to now pick who's going to run Iran. It isn't our mission. Our mission, though, I think, and we don't have to do it ourselves. We simply need to ensure that the Israelis are free to take care of the remainder of this regime, is to create conditions under which the people of Iran will rise up and remove what's left of this regime and make the decisions about how they will be governed going forward. I'm prayerful that as I think a very much educated, cultured, capable population, very much with a affinity for the West, that what will come out of it, perhaps after some chaos, yes, perhaps, will be a government that will be very much wanting to bring their people at long last back into the Western civilized world. We just need to make sure, and this is my key message to President Trump and everybody else. Pete Hegseth today was talking about, getting back into negotiations, and the purpose of which is to have peace. The point is, there will be no peace with the mullahs. There may be what they call a hudna, where they temporarily suspend hostilities while they regroup and rearm and then re-engage at their convenience. That's not peace, and that's not something that will serve us, because it suppresses the people of Iran. And as you were saying earlier, Jake, this isn't their first rodeo. They've been terribly, terribly brutalized, especially when they have taken the opportunity to try to rise up. There's never been a chance like now, and with the Israelis' help, if they are free to finish the job, as our friend Steve Bannon likes to say, by getting the IRGC, the security apparatus that keeps these mullahs in power. And we've had the president of Iran, I'm told, resign. Presumably that's because he didn't want to be put out of business the old-fashioned way. But that ought to be the case with every single one of them. Just entreat President Trump. Don't allow a new negotiation to have the effect of legitimizing this regime further and discouraging the Israelis from acting to remove it, the last vestiges of it, and most especially keep the people of Iran from achieving what we all should want, and I think need, and that is a free Iran.
Thank you, Frank Gaffney. I want to show you our complete team that's joining us now for this hour. We have, first of all, Steve Gruber, the host of America's Voice Live here on Real America's Voice. We're also joined by Matt Faraci, who has an Israel podcast. Steve Gruber, I want to go to you first because you have to remind people here on Real America's Voice. I hope all of you were watching this channel for the last several days because, first of all, this was the channel that first told you that you should be focusing on the word within 2 weeks. When Caroline Levitt said within 2 weeks, talked about that on my program, talked about it on American Sunrise. I know you talked about it too as well, Steve. And of course, the scrambling last night, people like David Zier, who also joins us now, to get on the air and to let people know about what was going on. And of course, our early morning coverage this morning. Steve, we have the freedom here to speak the way we want to. Steve, you're joining us from an undisclosed location in Michigan where you live with chickens. But America didn't act like chickens last night, did they, Steve?
No, they did not. And look, what we did last night, there is no question that Donald Trump, again, and we talked about it on America's Voice Live for the entirety of all last week. It was pretty clear by what President Trump was saying that he was going in. Now, we tempered that a bit on Friday because he got me too. He got me to say, well, maybe they're going to take a moment to negotiate for a minute. They were never going to take a moment to negotiate. The negotiations were over as far as the plants in Fordo and the Natanz and the others. They were going in. They had made the decision. They moved some B-2 bombers. Again, it's great manipulation of the headlines and propaganda to open the avenue so that America could deliver they call it the Midnight Hammer. They could deliver the Midnight Hammer to Iran and say, look, we're not going to tolerate you having a nuclear weapon. And for the people that are out there today, well, why is it up to us to have oversight over Iran? Because nobody else can. because it's our job to keep the world safe. It's our job to make sure that the mullahs in Tehran do not have nuclear weapons that they will use, not just on Israel potentially, but potentially on the United States. They want a delivery system, ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. They want those missiles available so they could hit the United States. That's a fact. And for anybody who questions why we did this, we did this because we had to. And we have an opportunity for the first time since 1979 to deliver a blow to Iran, to that regime that is at its weakest point since 1979, since the Iranian Islamic Revolution of 1979, when they took 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. This was the window that was open. We called it here on this network. We said they're going within a couple of days. I said by Saturday. Apparently I was right about that. You were too, Jake. I know that Matt Faraci and David Zier and all the rest have been watching this closely as well, because we're right on the cusp of a change of leadership in Iran. And how important would that be to the world going forward? Their neighbors like Saudi Arabia and Jordan and other countries in the Middle East, they don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons either, because they don't trust these people in Tehran to have that kind of power. And that's where we wake up today. And that's where I woke up today, because I've not been feeling well, but I woke up and I've absorbed all of this. And look, it's a new day. I applaud President Trump and his administration, Pete Hegseth, for pulling off another head fake. Oh, look here. We've got, and then bam, midnight hammer falls on the Iranians. And I have to say, most Americans are not for boots on the ground, but they're perfectly okay with this kind of an activity to stop the Tehran regime from having nuclear weapons.
No, Steve, you may be sick, but you sound great, and what you have to say is very wise. I want to go to Matt Faraci. Matt, you're a former political strategist. You know, we're talking about regime change in Iran, but I'm not putting tongue in cheek when I say this, Matt. What are we going to get regime change from the Democratic Party? I don't know how smart a political consultant you have to be to understand that if you are an elected Democrat in this country right now and you stand for this attack, and you stand for what is a safeguarding of the American people, a safeguarding of our allies, an attack against a regime that is against every liberal belief and philosophy under the sun, whether it's the suppression of women, whether it's the killing of gay and lesbian people, on down the line. I don't think I need to be a genius to say that any Democrat that does that will get a boost in the polls. They might get a shiv in the side from the DNC, but they would get a boost in the polls. Could this lead to regime change among the Democratic Party, where we see sane Democrats coming to power over there?
Well, first, what I'd love to do, if I might just for a second, is add to what Steve said, because I think it's prescient. The nature of the threat. I think the whole conversation about the nature of the threat has been way off, and that's probably because people have what I call George W. Bush syndrome. You know, before George W. Bush, when the president of the United States said that such and such is a threat, we believed them. And unfortunately, after George W. Bush, because of the fact that there were no WMD found in Iraq, et cetera, now when the president says something, everybody questions it. First of all, of course, these weapons were a threat to Israel. There are several 100,000 Americans, I need to point out, living in Israel. There are also Americans living in the region. You'll also further notice that of the Arab states who can't stand Iran, you haven't heard anybody saying anything negative, right? That's partly because the president went over there beforehand and let everybody know what was going to happen if Iran chose not to give up their nuclear program. But I just want to make the point that yes, Israel's a key ally, and yes, it was a threat to Israel, but it's also a threat to the United States. I think people are thinking in a linear manner, right? They're thinking about, well, Iran could build a nuke, and then they could put the nuke on a missile, and the missile could hit Israel or Europe in the short term and America in the long term. Yeah. The other thing is we're going
to let you finish in just a second, Matt, because we're going to have to take a break. We're talking with Matt Faraci. Remember, you're watching Real America's Voice. We were live all day yesterday with Steve Bannon, who said the party is on right here. This was the network to watch. This was the channel to watch, and it still will be when we come right back from break. We'll be right back with Matt Faraci here on Real America's Voice.
Why aren't you getting results? Random workouts, overtraining muscles, completely missing others, wasted time. Don't do that. Do this. This is 25 Minute Speed Train. Follow me for just 25 minutes a day, 7 days a week, with minimal equipment, and get actual results.
Look at the definition. I didn't have these arms at high school.
Subscribe to Body in the next 24 hours for less than 50 cents a day and get 25 Minute Speed Train free at bodywithaneye.com.
Iran has hit cities across Israel with a massive attack. There are rockets and drones that are hitting our schools, our homes, our synagogues. I'm Yael Eckstein of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, and we urgently need your response now to help bring emergency food, shelter, and life-saving supplies.
The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews has emergency teams across the front lines of Israel's war for survival. Call now to give your gift of $45 and help provide food, shelter, and life-saving supplies. It's your prayers and gifts that give hope and comfort to Israel and the Jewish people.
The Fellowship is a Bible-believing ministry, and we desperately need tens of thousands of faithful believers to answer this call for help now.
Call, scan, or go online now to stand with Israel.
The U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime. God bless the Middle East, God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to our live coverage here of Operation Midnight Hammer, the U.S. strike on the Iranian 3 nuclear sites, according to the president and our Secretary of Defense, completely successful. We were just in the middle of talking with Matt Faraci when I rudely interrupt you. I'm sorry, Matt, but before you get back to your point, I want to ask you about the media coverage of this. You know, it's really important for the American people to understand that those of us in the news business who have been in it for a long time, like myself, like people like Steve Gruber, like Frank Gaffney, David Zier, we knew this was going to happen when it was going to happen, for the most part, not the exact hour, but you get the point. Right. And accordingly, here on Real America's Voice, we were live yesterday with Steve Bannon's War Room, and he's live on the air when this thing starts, and he says the party has started. I mean, there is an absolute, I was just talking about what we need, regime change with the Democratic Party, but people also need to understand media messaging here. I am not looking to win elections for anyone or going into the trenches, but I'm here to tell the American people what I think they're not getting, even on those established channels. We know we know who they are. Where they think maybe there's a friendly message. And I think, Matt, that's important now too, right? The American people need to get good, clear, in the minute messaging like they got here, and they're getting here now.
Yeah, exactly. And just to double down on what you're saying, again, the nature of the threat, a nuclear armed Iran is a direct threat to the United States. And one of the things that, again, that we don't know is, let's say that they were able to make nuclear weapons. They also specialize in drones. What kind of technology or delivery systems could Iran use to deliver those nuclear weapons? Or who would they sell them to? Because there's lots of bad actors around the world. They're the biggest sponsors of terrorism. So they like to give weapons to their proxies. You know, it doesn't take a genius to figure out what's happening there. To your point about the Democrats, I think there's two sort of key things that takeaways from this. The first thing is it's quite terrifying to see the face, at least, of the Democratic Party as an anti-American party, a party that is rooting for the other side. That is something that's unprecedented and that we've never seen in this country before. And I know people are saying, well, they should keep going because they're never going to win an election. But the scary part is, if they were to win another election, it would make Joe Biden look like a moderate. And that's, to me, as an American, that's very troubling. The other thing that I am hoping and praying that this strike has done is, if you look at the bedwetting on the right, and not just from Tucker Carlson, but from a bunch of other voices on the right who obviously have fatigue from the forever wars that have been fought since George W. Bush. The point is, and I'm sure Frank Gaffney has made this point beautifully on air, is that not all wars are the same. Not all military actions are the same. Taking out nuclear sites with a precision strike is not the same as putting hundreds of thousands of Americans on the ground in a country for an indefinite period of time. The president has never suggested that that's something he's looking to do. He has consistently suggested that he wants to get rid of Iran's nuclear program. And finally, everybody's seeing that he was actually serious about what he said from the very beginning. Please negotiate. Okay, you don't want to negotiate. I'm going to get rid of your nuclear program. It's amazing to me that Trump has been around for 10 years and people have still not figured out that when he says something, he means it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Steve Gruber, I want to go to you because, you know, you're in America's heartland. You're in Michigan, which more than just being the heartland is also a key swing state in these last few elections. I mean, you can't put it's hardly a more important state to the United States right now. Steve, how do you think the people in Michigan are going to respond to this news, have been responding to this news of Operation Midnight Hammer? Do you think there's going to be, and of course you have also a significant Arab American population in Michigan, which, by the way, did not vote in large numbers against Donald Trump in the election in November, as we know. So, I mean, do you think that this will be taken in an interesting way? Because remember, Iran is not an Arab country. It's a Muslim country. It's been looking to dominate the Arab people, but it's not an Arab country. I mean, am I crazy to say that there may actually be support for this among a critical mass of people in Michigan, both Arab, non-Arab, American-born, et cetera?
We're going to have to see how that plays out over the next, few days, few weeks, and see how this operation continues. Right now, it looks like a one-and-done operation, Midnight Hammer does. We're not sure where it's going to go. The president obviously not tipping his hand ever to what's going on. But you have to go back a few days to the Situation Room. The decision was made there, what was that, Tuesday of this week? The decision was made in the Situation Room at the White House at that time, and he came out and said, look, we're going to try for a couple more negotiations. The Iranian delegation ended up in, Geneva? None of that mattered. This decision was made. And so when I come to the heartland of swing states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, you do have to look at how the electorate's going to take this. I believe they'll be fine with it. I believe overall they'll be fine with it. Yes, there's a huge Middle Eastern population in Dearborn in that part of the state down around Detroit. Now, having said that, you have to look at the fact that the mayor in Dearborn Heights and other places in that part of the state of Michigan endorsed Donald Trump prior to the 2024 election. I don't think there's changed that. You go back again to Saudi Arabia, who says they don't want nuclear weapons, but they were clear this week, was the Crown Prince. He said, if there are nuclear weapons in Iran, we will have them in short order here, paraphrasing a little bit. But that's the concern, because even the neighbors of Iran in the Middle East don't trust that country. They don't trust them to be good neighbors, to be safe. And again, I come back to what Matt was saying. Yes, they want intercontinental ballistic missiles. They want ICBMs to deliver warheads to the United States, to the shores of this country. So when people say, why is it our business? Because it's your family, your children, your grandchildren that face the threat of Iran. When people look you in the eye and say, death to America, believe what they say. It's what they think. It's their philosophy for all these years. And I want to add one more thing to all of this. And that is, where does China come down? China gets 20 to 25% of its oil out the back door, by the way, on the black market from Iran. And this will hurt dictator Xi. Xi Jinping will be hurt economically to a point by this. You're seeing the Iranians now saying they have voted to close the Strait of Hormuz. Well, if they do that, the oil delivery systems to China and elsewhere will be constricted. China's already got problems with its economy. China's already got problems internally with its people because of the economic pressures levied by tariffs and so forth by this president. And again, Donald Trump does exactly what he said he's going to do, and that's put America first. So he's not concerned with China on oil and so forth, but China is facing a problem here because it further constricts our economy. Oil is at $77 today. 10 days ago, it was at $62. It's up $15 a barrel already on the open market. Looking at West Texas Intermediate and Brent crude, the benchmark here at $77.50 now as it's creeping up. These are things to watch. How China reacts is important in this. Russia also gets oil from Iran. So does North Korea. This is their partner in crime, if you will, that supports this network of terrorists, of Hezbollah and Hamas and all of the rest. So this is going to be an interesting thing to watch as to how those countries react to what has happened. But I say, I think here in Michigan, people are going to applaud the move by the president. Didn't put boots on the ground, devastated their nuclear infrastructure, we believe. We obviously were waiting for more intel, but it looks like Fordo and Natanz and these other places got hit hard. 14 of those Moabs got dropped into the key Iranian nuclear facilities. It's what they voted for, is to protect this country first, America first. And I think that most people are going to be okay with it, Jake.
Yeah, I agree. We have a great panel here. Steve Gruber from America's Voice Live. We have Matt Faraci, a political strategist and also a podcaster. We have David Zier in Washington, D.C., and we have Frank Gaffney. I want everyone to watch Prime Minister Netanyahu's response. Many of you may have not seen this. This is Prime Minister Netanyahu's response to the news of Operation Midnight Hammer. And then I'm going to get the panel's reactions to this because I think there's a lot to unpack here as well. Check it out.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace. President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you. God bless America. God bless Israel. And may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable faith.
Let's start with David Zier. David, I thought that Bibi and Donald Trump had broken up. They were having a big fight. I heard the left and people who hate Israel dancing in the streets a couple of nights ago saying this is the end of their relationship. Not so much, right, David?
No, Netanyahu wasn't going to visit Joe Biden. He went to the Southern White House to visit Donald Trump earlier in the year. They know what has to be done, Israel being a key ally for the United States here. But I would just express, there's definitely concern out there. The UAE and Turkey are upset about this escalation. Russia's condemning it. Saudi Arabia. Who would ever think? Now, Trump opened the door with Netanyahu and the Middle East, the Abraham Accords, the 3 other peace deals, allowing Israel to use Saudi Arabia's airspace for the first time, even for civilian and military. Now, that was reversed under Biden, but that relationship is back, and it's probably stronger than ever at this point here. But, the Gulf states are definitely concerned about infrastructure getting struck. We have our bases in Bahrain. We have bases in Iraq that were attacked after we killed Soleimani under the first Trump administration. But Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Iraq, of course, condemned the U.S. strikes. But, who would think Saudi Arabia, right? You got the Houthi rebels blowing up the Saudi Arabian airports for years and years and years and affecting shipping lanes and shooting missiles. But they're concerned about the fallout from this. So I think the next few weeks are going to be really telling here, because it's a victory right now. But it's something very close to watch. And I just wanted to add those Gulf states, Oman, UAE, Iraq, they're concerned also about environmental damage that can be done if things start blowing up, if there's radiation leaked, all kinds of stuff. Like I said earlier, 60 million people get their drinking water from desalinization plants through the Persian Gulf. This is a tightrope. This is not something that can be taken lightly. But I think the Netanyahu-Trump relationship is stronger than ever.
All right, David Zier. We're going to be right back with more on our live coverage here of Operation Midnight Hammer here on Real America's Voice. The party is on.
The party is on. And so that is our analysis this morning. Is the party on? Is this thing, are we inexorably drawn into this, and maybe today's the day of action? The one swoop of a jet that Kayleigh McEnany wants, just one swoop of a jet.
Why aren't you getting results? Random workouts, overtraining muscles, completely missing others, wasted time. Don't do that. Do this. This is 25 Minute Speed Train. Follow me for just 25 minutes a day, 7 days a week. with minimal equipment and get actual results.
Look at the definition. I didn't have these arms at high school.
Subscribe to Body in the next 24 hours for less than 50 cents a day and get 25-minute speed train free at bodywithaneye.com.
Iran has hit cities across Israel with a massive attack. There are rockets and drones that are hitting our schools, our homes, our synagogues. I'm Yael Eckstein of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, and we urgently need your response now to help bring emergency food, shelter, and life-saving supplies.
The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews has emergency teams across the front lines of Israel's war for survival. Call now to give your gift of $45 and help provide food, shelter, and life-saving supplies. It's your prayers and gifts that give hope and comfort to Israel and the Jewish people.
The Fellowship is a Bible-believing ministry, and we desperately need tens of thousands of faithful believers to answer this call for help now.
Call, scan, or go online now to stand with Israel.
U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime. God bless the Middle East, God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to our live coverage here on Real America's Voice, where the party is on, and the party has been on since all day yesterday when you were watching this channel and you heard Steve Bannon say that, and you were on top of the news well ahead of anyone else. I'm Jake Novak. This has been the live coverage. We are well into our third hour, almost 3 hours complete right now, talking about what we now know is being called Operation Midnight Hammer. I want to go to Frank Gaffney. Frank, we played before the break Prime Minister Netanyahu's response to Operation Midnight Hammer, his very deep gratitude expressed to President Trump. Some people are absolutely going to make this all about some kind of slavishness to President Trump and not really the bigger picture. It goes well beyond their personal relationship, doesn't it, Frank?
Oh, assuredly. And I think what Bibi said, which was pitch perfect, is this is about changing the course of history. You know, it's fairly infrequent that one understands that you're in the midst of that kind of transformation when it's taking place, but this is unmistakably the case. And he also made the key point, I think, Jake, that this is about Western civilization, or if you will, Judeo-Christian civilization. That's what's on the line here. It's not just Israel. It's not just America. It's not even just Europe and, you know, other parts of the world. It's about the civilized world, which is exactly what these mullahs in Iran are trying to take down and have been since they came to power. And if I could just take a minute to respond to something Steve said, his analysis, I think, is right. The American people are with Donald Trump on this. We've been witnessing, unfortunately, a little bit of a sort of fratricidal exercise going on amongst MAGA. And I think it's important to drill down on this at this particular moment in time. It's been underway, I think, mostly at the hands of a lot of younger folks. I call it a kind of children's crusade. A push to say, no, you know, none of this is our business. Peace is all about, you know, staying home and minding our own business. And it doesn't matter what happens to Israel. It doesn't matter what happens to the people of Iran. I think adults, and notably amongst them, the large number of Christian adults who are, I think, the majority of the MAGA base, by the way, are for dealing with this in the kind of way Donald Trump has done. And all I'm pleading for, one more time, in the course of this program, you've given me a chance to say this, but I think it's absolutely imperative that it be part of what we take away from everything we've heard, everything we've discussed. Will history be determined with an ongoing presence of the Ayatollahs, the mullahs, the Sharia supremacists in Iran, continuing to do what they can to take down Western civilization? Or will it be defined by the people of Iran finally, at last, having a chance to free themselves and free Iran and bring it back into that Western civilized world? And I think this turns now, not on American force of arms, not even on President Trump's leadership. It's just a matter of allowing the Israelis to do what I believe they know must be done, which is to end the regime in Iran and the security apparatus that keeps the people there terrified and repressed and enslaved. And if those things take place, Bibi's absolutely right. Western civilization will prosper. Iran will prosper. Israel will prosper. The United States will prosper. And last point, the alternative is to leave in place people who can command at any time attacks on our forces in the Gulf, of course, more attacks on Israel, and the operational attacks inside our own country by the cells and the assassination teams that they've put here. All of these reasons argue, I think, convincingly for doing what the vast majority, I'm convinced, of MAGA, to say nothing of the American people, want, which is a decisive victory at last. We haven't had one really since World War II. This is one we can get, and we don't have to do it ourselves. God bless Israel. God bless America. Thank you.
Yeah. Matt Faraci, your thoughts on what Frank Gaffney just laid out. I'd like to get your overall thoughts. I'd like you to address specifically the people who aren't so sure about this. I'm not talking about the crazy Trump deranged syndrome people who if he says 2 + 2 = 4, they'll say it's 5. I'm not talking about the people who are so anti-American and anti-Israel that they can't be reasoned with. I'd like you, Matt Faraci, to address those people who are saying this morning, I want to trust President Trump, I want to trust our military, but I'm not so sure about this. What would you say to them, Matt?
Well, as somebody that goes back and forth between the United States and Israel constantly, one of the things that I've appreciated is that the more time you spend in the Middle East, the more you realize that the average American, and this is not an insult, it's just a fact, the average American does not understand the culture over there. It is vastly different than the culture in the United States or anything that we may be familiar with in Europe, although, goodness, the way Europe's going, that may come back to bite me. The way that it works in the Middle East is that the only thing that people take seriously is the threat of force. Why do you think Israel is so heavily armed? And why do you think the IDF is so prepared all the time? Because they know that the only way to deter terrorism is force. So the fact is that I think the mullahs here made a miscalculation, which was that every single U.S. regime or U.S. administration, before President Trump had said, hey, line in the sand, if you remember Obama, line in the sand, we're not going to allow you to have a nuclear weapon. Some weeks ago, and it was credited to President Trump, this statement that Iran has never won a war but has never lost a negotiation. And so when the president said, we're not going to allow you to do this, he had to back that up. If Iran was not ultimately willing to divest themselves of their nuclear program, Trump was going to have to back that up. And here's what I think the most salient point. There are those critiquing the administration and saying Trump is starting World War III. It is just the opposite. Trump has made this move to stop World War III, to prevent World War III, to remove the, just imagine Iran, which has obviously been allied with Russia, allied with China and some other bad actors. Imagine Iran, which was apparently very close to getting their first set of weapons, being allowed to continue to do that. Now you've got World War III. Now you've got the serious threat of World War III. Also, David, to your point about the Saudis, I personally think that was kind of a wink, wink. They said what they felt they needed to say, but they knew this was happening. They talked to the president about this beforehand. Iran having a nuclear program is an existential threat to Saudi Arabia, and it's an existential threat to any of the other Gulf states. So they all can't stand Iran. I was talking to a guy the other day from Ethiopia who was explaining that some of the terrorist activity in Ethiopia was funded by, you guessed it, Iran. They are the bad guys of the world. Nobody likes them. And so I think what the president is doing here is proactively saying, no, we've got to stop World War III. That's precisely why I'm not going to let a country that would actually use nukes to have them.
All right, Matt Faraci, I want to thank you for joining us, and that was a good summary of everything that's going on. I want to bring in Real America's Voice contributor Mark Serrano because, let's first start with that last point that we made. about how Saudi Arabia, I've been on live events with Saudi Arabian officials where they say things like this, where they say like, well, we don't really love what Iran is doing, but we don't support Israel, and we don't support the United States doing this, that. And I often say, I understand your position because you have to say that publicly. And then I look at the audience and say, let me say what our esteemed guest from Saudi Arabia is not allowed to say, but we know he's thinking. And of course, they all get really mad at me because they have to pretend they're upset. But believe me, they're grateful that I'm helping to say that. Saudi Arabia is not going to be a problem here, are they? Mark, this is not going to be an issue.
Absolutely, Jake. Look, there's policy and there's propaganda. And policy from these moderate Arab states is that Iran's been a threat for a long time, and that threat needed to be eliminated. And they're delighted President Trump took this action. Then there's propaganda, which is their messaging can't necessarily come full force backing President Trump like Bibi Netanyahu did. So there's a distinction between the policy and the propaganda, but make no doubt about it. They support President Trump, and they are looking forward to a Middle East that can enjoy peace and prosperity. If I may, Jake, there is a big loser besides Iran in this development that took place yesterday, and it's the legacy media. Real America's Voice scooped legacy media on the biggest story of the year. Legacy media they're like the ayatollahs of news misinformation in America. They support censorship. They have attacked Donald Trump for 10 years, and yet they got scooped because yesterday on his regular program from 10 to 12, our esteemed colleague, Steve Bannon, the host of War Room, he talked about the party is on. He knew his sources were telling him that this attack was going to take place. And Real America's Voice went live for most of the day, well into the late evening, because we knew it was coming thanks to Steve Bannon. He met with the president on Thursday. He's been very vocal about his concerns about taking this action against Iran and what it means for our America First policies. But what's really striking to me is that the news media has egg on their face. They are so misaligned with the American people. They blew it. They had no idea this was coming, and Real America's Voice did. And I'll make one last point about this, Jake. This Trump White House has embraced new media because they recognize the corruption within corporate legacy media. We now have a seat at the table, a front row seat in that briefing room where David Zier is there, where Brian Glenn reports from there every day of the week. And it's just mind-blowing that we now have embraced, this administration has embraced new media because they know that's where the American people get their news from Real America's Voice. And now they know breaking news starts right here.
Oh, well said, Mark Serrano. All right, we're just about to wrap up our coverage, our live coverage this morning, so I need to go around the horn from the three of you, Steve Gruber, David Zier, and Frank Gaffney. I want to start with Steve Gruber. I need 30 seconds from you. Your thoughts right now.
Well, I'm watching, and Mark is spot on in what he just said right there and everything he said. Look, the American people are going to be behind the president. This network was on top of it from Steve Bannon all the way down. We've got a seat in the room now, so we can give the American people a front row view and commentary on what's happening from the White House to the Oval Office to the Situation Room to Iran. It's a critical place for us to be. The network news is it's old, it's passé, it doesn't have a clue as to what's going on, and they don't have the pulse of the American people. That is absolutely true. We do.
Yeah, and look at this panel that you're looking at right now. Do you think people like me, Frank Gaffney, Mark Serrano, Steve Gruber, and David Zier aren't more plugged into the overall story? I'm not even talking about sources within an administration. This isn't about partisanship. This is about our experience, our historical knowledge, our willingness to share that with the viewing public. David Zier, your thoughts as we wrap up here, your 20 seconds.
Yeah, I don't think anyone, including Trump, takes any of this lightly. He didn't stop to take questions when we watched Marine One land on the South Lawn last night. We knew something was up also. And I just want to say, as for regime change in Iran, state propaganda TV has shut down the internet as well. We should airdrop 100,000 Starlinks on them and let the people organize themselves and do something. And just in closing, Iran went too hard, too fast. They lost their proxies in Syria, Hamas, Hezbollah in Yemen. They engaged in too many nefarious activities, and it was time for Israel to act. And doesn't mean we're all not concerned about everything going forward, but this was a big success so far.
Frank Gaffney, your 20 seconds of last thoughts.
Yeah, I couldn't be more proud to be part of the Real America's Voice Network. We're the warm-up act for your early edition exercise every week day at 5, and weekends too. I'm anxious to just call attention. We're going to do a fabulous webinar with our friends at 365 Action, Israel 365 Action, the Victory Coalition, on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We should have a link up very shortly at victoryco.org to give a lot more texture to all of the things that we've been talking about today. And I thank you for including me in this. Great to be with you guys, Jake.
The party is on. Operation Midnight Hammer. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for joining us for this 3 hours of special coverage here on Real America's Voice. Stay with this channel from now on, let alone the rest of the day. Thank you so much.
The party is on. And so that is our analysis this morning. Is the party on? Is this thing, are we inexorably drawn into this, and maybe today's the day of action? You know, just the one swoop of a jet that Kayleigh McEnany wants, just one swoop of a jet.
It's just like our new house. I hope you have an American Home Shield warranty. Leaky toilet? Fixed. Oven beyond repair? If AHS can't fix your covered item, then replace it, no matter its age. Sign up today at ahs.com.
Who wants to drag out a bulky vacuum? Introducing Horsepower Duck, a super compact vac with ultra-powerful suction. Clean up that mess in the kitchen, the spill on the sofa, even sawdust in the workshop. Just duck it up. The compact design can reach the tightest places, so store it in any drawer where it's always at your fingertips. You can even store it in your glove box for the ultimate car vac. The HEPA filter helps remove dust and allergens. Plus, it dumps out with ease, so it's ready to clean again. Get the Horsepower Duck hand vac for just $39.99. Order right now and we'll upgrade you to the Duck Pro package, a $30 value, yours free. You get the bendable tube, the crevice nozzle, and the soft brush nozzle, but supplies are limited.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Faith and Freedom. I'm Shemaine Nugent. Joining me now is Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, National Security Advisor under President Trump, and he's been on the front lines of military intelligence, psychological warfare, and geopolitical strategy. And today, he's joining us to give us the breakdown on what's really going on. General Flynn, welcome.
Thanks, Shemaine, for having me, and I appreciate it. And appreciate all you're continuing to do with your great voice.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So I want to get your take on what is happening with Iran right now, because things are heating up fast. Trump hasn't officially said that we're going to war, but his message was loud and clear. He's demanding unconditional surrender from Iran. And we're seeing major military movement in the region, bombers, warships, air support. General Flynn, how close are we from this tipping from tough talk into real military action?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I mean, there has been real military action. It's been going on for almost a week now with missiles flying both directions, certainly from Iran into Israel, and then the Israeli attacks by their superb air capabilities and air force. Just to give people sort of a lay of the land, there is now another U.S. aircraft carrier battle group moving into the Eastern Mediterranean. So that'll be our third aircraft carrier battle group that's positioned in the region. That is a big decision and an awful lot of capability that the United States military, the United States of America, is now positioned in the Arabian Sea, the Persian Gulf region, and now the Eastern Med. So we have a lot of forces there, naval forces. We also have, the U.S. also has a lot of ground forces that are stationed inside of the region. We have military personnel in Iraq still. We have them in Saudi Arabia. We have them in Qatar. We have them in damn near every one of those countries. You know, in some cases, thousands, in other cases, small numbers like hundreds in embassies and such, and providing protection for, you know, the kinds of basing that we have over there. So the U.S. has a force presence in the region that's pretty substantial, not like it was during the height of the Iraq War or anything like that. The Israelis are now in what I would call sort of in their phase 2 of their overall campaign, which I had predicted a while back when they first started on, I think, the 13th, that this thing was going to go on for a couple of weeks, and it will continue to go on for a couple of weeks unless something dramatic changes, and I'll get to that here in 1 minute. The Israelis, their first initial campaign was to target leadership targets and military headquarters, and they did a really superb job of that. The second part of their campaign is to go after infrastructure, and particularly their nuclear infrastructure and their ability to war make, right? Their military industrial complex. So we've seen some refineries that have been struck. We've seen some of their military industrial complex struck. We've seen a lot of their ground-based air defense, which provides very close-in targeting for the Iranian missiles. The other side on Iran has fired now about 8 waves, maybe 9 waves of their ballistic missile capacity. And at some point in time, you have to ask yourself, you know, can both sides sustain this for much longer? I don't believe the Iranians can sustain much longer with this ballistic missile capability. Yeah, that's a great slide there that you got up. I posted a slide like that, similar to that, here not too long ago, probably 30 minutes ago on my X at Jen Flynn, because what we're now seeing are these longer range missiles, and it's probably because the shorter range missiles that can only target Israel. The longer-range missiles the Iranians are now using, because I think that they're starting to run short on capacity. So all that said, Trump now has called for unconditional surrender. What has happened in the last 12 hours, Shemaine, is that we have seen 3 aircraft. One of them, we believe, is the presidential aircraft from Tehran, from the Iranian regime, fly from Tehran to Oman, to Muscat in Oman. So are they carrying a lot of the leadership? Is Kaine on board? Are their families being hustled out of there from the tyrannical leadership of the Iranian regime? So those 3 aircraft have flown into Oman in the last probably 12 hours. Putin has put out a very strong message. The Turkish President Erdogan has put out a very strong anti-Israel message. Putin put out a very stern message that basically said, and it was a warning to the U.S., to President Trump, not to get involved in the Middle East. And that's something that we're going to have to all pay attention to. So where does that put President Trump? You know, in the national security arena, in the Situation Room, the president has access to a whole bunch of information. And he should have access to every single piece of information that the United States government can get their hands on that has to do with this issue, has to do with this region, has to do with this fight. And because he has a big decision to make. The fact that he's called for an unconditional surrender of Khamenei and the Iranian regime is a big deal. He's going to have to move forward on that. So what does that mean? Will the United States, will he answer this question? Will the United States provide even more devastating capabilities that we do have to deter and stop and probably destroy Iran's nuclear weapons making capability. And the main target would be Fordow, which is one of the big, deeply buried, hardened targets that the Iranians have had for many, many decades now. And it goes way underground. And they can do a lot of testing down there, and they have done a lot of the enrichment. And as Marco Rubio said, and I've been very public about, if you can, once you get past 3% highly enriched uranium development, right, 3%, then you begin to move it. And we now for certain know that it was at 60%. Once you're at 60%, you're at 90%, and therefore you can build a weapon. So all this nonsense about, we've been saying Iran's going to have a weapon for a long time. No, the Iranians have a weapon, and that's what you have to believe. You got to believe that they have it, or they have gotten to the point where they got so close to having one, literally days or weeks away. And so the Israelis could not risk any longer. They couldn't take this risk any longer that suddenly Iran was going to have a nuclear weapon. Iran has talked about not destroying Israel, but wiping it off the face of the planet, okay? Annihilating the nation state of Israel. And frankly, no nation, no bully should be able to exist like that on this planet. And Trump was pretty clear about that in his statement, I think, this morning when he was outside the White House. We got to stop with this bullying nonsense. And no ally of the United States of America, and in this case, Israel is an ally, not just a partner and a friend. They are an ally. And we have longstanding relationships with them. And trust me, for the world that watches your show, trust me, Shemaine, this president is not going to allow that type of threat to be presented to the nation state of Israel, to the Israeli people. Just is not going to happen. So does Trump say to Khomeini, you got 72 hours, or you have 24 hours to either get out of there, or we're gonna do the following? I don't know. I don't know that, but those are some of the things that Trump is going to have to consider. He's going through his own mental decision-making process right now. He's still being fed a lot of information. We still have a lot of other things that we've got to do that he's prioritized inside of our own country. We still have, the wolf called China inside the hen house called America. They're not outside, they're inside. We've got Russia and Ukraine at each other's throats, and that's expanding. People have said, well, Netanyahu's trying to draw us into a bigger conflict, a bigger war. No, he's not. The person who's trying to draw us into a bigger war is Zelensky in Ukraine when he targeted a third of Russia's nuclear triad. I mean, that cost Russia quite a bit. And frankly, that was one of those surprise attacks where you don't do stuff like that against nuclear capabilities. Yeah. Russia wasn't presenting a threat with their nuclear capabilities. Zelensky's trying to draw NATO and the West and the United States into a much larger war in Europe. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, General Flynn, because we got about a minute, well, less than that. I got to run for this segment, but you're sticking around for another one. And I want to ask you, how vulnerable does it leave us? We know that there are millions of fighting-age men within our border. Yep. Is this beginning of World War III? I'm going to get your take on that when we come back. Stick around, will you? Okay, we're going to come back in just a second with General Michael Flynn. But first, I want to tell you, if you're like me and millions of others, right now, you're probably staying up too late, worrying about what is going to happen next. And sometimes I have to force myself to try and sleep. But here's the good news. When I lay my head down on Mike Lindell's My Pillow, it just puts me at ease. It supports my neck and I sleep better. I know you will too. Check it out, mypillow.com. Use the promo code FAITH for a discount. Go to mypillow.com and the promo code is FAITH. We'll be right back with more. General Mike Flynn.
Relish the opportunity to be an outsider, because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this.
Most men over 40 look into the mirror and see this, when they could be seeing this. Most men over 40 look into the mirror and see this, when they could be seeing this. Most men over 40 look into the mirror and see this, when they could be using this. Particle 6-in-1 Face Cream for Men, the first of its kind anti-aging cream designed specifically for men. Fights eye bags, dark spots, and wrinkles. Visit particlemen.com and use the promo code on your screen to receive 25% off your entire order. Plus, we've got free shipping and a 30-day money-back guarantee. www.particlemen.com. Because seeing is believing.
Why aren't you getting results? Random workouts, overtraining muscles, completely missing others, wasted time. Don't do that. Do this. This is 25 Minute Speed Train. Follow me for just 25 minutes a day, 7 days a week, with minimal equipment, and get actual results.
Look at the definition. I didn't have these arms at high school.
Subscribe to Body in the next 24 hours for less than 50 cents a day and get 25-minute speed train free at bodywithaneye.com.
How many times have you tried to clean a stubborn mess but end up with no success? What you need is the all-new waterproof Ruby Horsepower, the new cordless and rechargeable power scrubber that cleans faster and easier, guaranteed. Watch, baked on oven grease is no match. It blasts away dirt and grime in no time. The power comes from our rotating brushes, spinning at 350 RPM. The incredible torque fights calcium, mildew, mold, and more. Take it in the kitchen, where it busts through caked-on crud, or outside and tackle tough tasks with ease. Get your Ruby Horsepower with 4 additional attachments, all for just $39.99. Great news! They're in stock and ready to ship. Due to high demand, only 2 per order. Order now.
Call 1-800-944-4512. That's 1-800-944-4512. Or visit horsepowerscrubber.com. So call 1-800-944-4512 now.
Relish the opportunity to be an outsider, because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this. We're back with General Michael Flynn, who has a new book out, The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare, where he breaks down how spiritual, psychological, and digital warfare are shaping our modern battles without a single shot being fired. General Flynn, why is this message so important right now?
Yeah, so, and part of what is out now, I mean, my brand new book that's out is called Pardon of Innocence. It's a great book, and people can go to Amazon and buy it. And I appreciate you touching on books. I've written 8 of them, and 2 of them are bestsellers. So this is really an amazing book of faith and family and freedom. And it will make you cry. It will make you laugh out loud. It will get you angry, and it will give you a call to action for what every American needs to understand and then do. Because of what I've been through, I felt very compelled to tell that story. And it's a very, very honest, it's a very, very brutally honest story, and it's well written and well sourced. So I want people to understand that I took a lot of time to put this thing together, a lifetime. And so anyway, back to what we were talking about, Shemaine, because this is really, you're right, and I'm so glad that you're pushing Mike Lindell and My Pillows. Mike's been fighting, and I'm a good friend of Mike, and I guess if you go to the promo code FAITH for you, do that, people, because Mike Lindell still needs our help. Bibi Netanyahu, he understands where we're at as a nation right now. He knows we've been stuck in the Middle East for the better part of 2 decades in Afghanistan and Iraq and other parts of the region there. He knows the sentiment of the American people is not about getting drawn back into another quagmire, another long, a war of participation and a losing effort. We don't need that. We don't want that. Netanyahu realizes that. But Netanyahu is also smart about what's going on in the sentiment of not only the region, but his own people, right? Netanyahu knows that he's not going to draw us back into another war, and he's not trying to do that like I just mentioned Zelensky was trying to do. Netanyahu needs capabilities. He needs capacity. He needs to know that certain things are going to be there for him and for Israel and for the people of Israel in order to prosecute this war, like additional weapon systems, which we provide to every single country in that region. So don't kid yourself for your audience that, well, we need to stay out. We're in that region so deep right now. It's unbelievable and always have been. He needs good intelligence. He needs the intelligence capability. At a certain point in time, in order to fully and accurately and in a confirmed way destroy Iran's nuclear weapon making capability and capacity, that he is probably going to need a capability that only the U.S. possesses that is non-nuclear. And that's these MOABs, they call them, mothers of all bombs, right? The big, huge tonnage bombs that can get into these deeply held targets, these deep penetrating targets that we need to hit. And this Fordow goes down, it goes way down, and it is one of their principal nuclear sites. So that's a capability that Trump is not about to give to the Israelis, not about to give to anybody. We have it. I am certain that that request has come in. It is being contemplated, and I know that Trump will make the right decision. I trust his instincts. I trust Trump's instincts on this, and he's going to listen to all the people around him on his sort of inside. He's also listening to people on the outside. Trust me on that. He is definitely listening to people on the outside because he likes good common sense advice from all sectors of certainly of the United States security environment, not just inside the government. Because if he had to rely on just people inside the government, God help him, because there's still a deep state that is trying to undermine him in a big way.
Yes.
He's got good people there, but they're not all good. Trust me. So where do we go?
I can imagine. Yeah. Where do we go, General Flynn? Not only where do we go, but where does it leave us as a nation? I feel like we're vulnerable. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, we're very vulnerable. So last thing that I would say is, here inside the United States, there is a large Hezbollah and Hamas presence, and there is a large Iranian presence. People don't realize it. And I'm not just talking about, a presence out in Los Angeles, California, or at Columbia University. I mean, there is a large presence in this country of Hezbollah and Hamas, two organizations that are really terrorist organizations. And now, because of what Biden did, allowing 20 million more people to come into this country, and a bunch of them are subversives, and they will come in as, they're not just criminals, these are terrorists, and these are leaders who can run these organizations. So I am concerned, and I think our law enforcement professionals, we have to stand behind them. What Trump is going to be, he's going to have to be directive when it comes to the Department of Homeland Security, when it comes to governors who are willing to work with him. We could see attacks inside of this country by some of these organizations that are terrorist organizations that are here, and they're here in strength because the Biden administration, and frankly, even the Obama administration, where it started, but they've allowed these groups to grow. And our law enforcement communities, their hands were tied for a long time, certainly for the last 4 years. And now Trump, I know, has unleashed them. So we're going to have to pay very close attention to here at home. And I don't mean to light people's hair on fire, but pay attention to your environment, pay attention to your surroundings. And let's be very attuned to what President of the United States of America I know he'll get out in front of the American people, and he will stop everything, and he'll say, I need to get in front of the American people. And he's going to lay out the objectives of what we, the United States of America, are doing. And Trump's first and foremost priority is really the preservation of our Constitution and the protection and safety of the American people. And I know that he'll do that. So I'm good about the person that we have in charge right now. Thank God we have Trump in charge.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine the alternative? I want to touch on faith real quickly. You're a man of faith, I know. Do you think that we're seeing echoes of Ezekiel 38, Revelation, and Isaiah 17 played out before our very eyes?
Yeah, the other question that came up the other day, which is an interesting one, is are we experiencing a Noah moment in this country? Right? And maybe globally, but certainly in this country. And that moment is, the metaphor where Noah was, had to go through all that, how that story goes. But are we in this country in a period of time now where we better come to grips with remaking ourselves as a Christian country? Because that's really how we were created. And I do think that we are being tested. And if you truly believe, and I do, that, in the case of President Trump, I mean, talk about a man anointed for a time such as this, right? And so God is giving us, I think, a chance. But he's not just giving us a chance with how we respond to the situation in the Middle East. No, God is giving us one more chance here to say, we are going to return as a godly nation. And we are going to, renew our faith in what we were created to be, right? This nation of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This nation of free, and believing people, freedom and faith, right? I mean, all these different things. I won't get too crazy about the speaking about places in the Bible, but I will tell you that I do believe that we are going through a Noah-type moment. And I think that Trump feels it, I instinctively feels it. I do, and let's just pray that he makes the right decision, and I know he will.
Absolutely. Now we're going to end on a lighter note. I've got about a minute left. We were together recently at Mar-a-Lago to celebrate and honor you and my husband Ted, Russell Brand, Mike Tyson, Gary Brecka, Enter Cantus Freedom, and so many others. Why did you want to organize that event?
Yeah, I wanted people to recognize those Americans, and there's a great shot right there. Those Americans who have, yeah, I love that shot, who have all been persecuted in one way or another, all have the same set of virtues, really, not just values, but virtues about freedom. And they have all of them are very strong, in this case, men of faith, and they've all rediscovered that faith. And I like to use our nonprofit, America's Future, to recognize strength, to recognize courage, and to recognize those people of great virtue and great courage that are willing to stand up and say who they are and be confident in who they are, and who also love this country. This idea of patriotism and the idea of faith, they're one and the same as far as I'm concerned.
General Michael Flynn, thank you so much for joining me. God bless. And I hope you can come back with some even better news.
Absolutely. Thanks, Shemaine.
God bless. We've got much more faith and freedom coming up. But first, I want to talk about health, because your health is your wealth. And I heard somebody say that a sick man has one dream, and that's to get healthy. And if we've got to stay healthy to fight this seen and unseen warfare, here's an easy step for you to include in your daily practice. Just one scoop of fruits and vegetables in a doctor-formulated powder once a day in your water. And I'm telling you, you can feel it. Your energy improves, your immune system improves, and what your doctor's going to notice too. So check out fieldofgreens.com. Let me hook you up with a 20% discount and free shipping, fieldofgreens.com, and use my code FREEDOM. That's fieldofgreens.com. And the promo code is FREEDOM. Don't go away. Much more faith and freedom.
Relish the opportunity to be an outsider, because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this.
To avoid digital threats, just turn on NordVPN. Improve your protection against trackers, malicious websites, and malware-ridden downloads. Get the deal now.
poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time.
This is the home of Galina. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You'll see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
Right now in Ukraine, elderly Jews are trapped in unbearable poverty. If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help rush a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
Eggs. It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
Please don't delay. Call, scan, or go online now.
Kevin paid off over $12,000 in credit card debt with the help of Consolidated Credit. They cut his interest rates and lowered his payments so he could pay off his debt fast. Call 800-596-8062 for a free consultation.
Would you like to get up to 33% more income in retirement? Call now and get this free book, Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers. As a bonus, we'll throw in a free annuity rate report. Both books are yours free, just for calling Annuity General today.
Did you know that thousands of authors across the country have written books and published them with Page Publishing? If you've written a book, Page Publishing can help you through the process. We cut through the confusion of the publishing world to make it easy for you.
Call 1-800-319-0257.
Relish the opportunity to be an outsider, because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this. We are out for our daily
celebrating the great spirit of the wild outdoors.
A lot of people realize that we are hunters. We love to hunt and we love to have pure lean venison. We're not always successful. So what do we do, Ted?
Switch to America with Shemaine beef.
We're going to actually go home and have a ribeye right now. We pulled it out to thaw, and I'm super excited because we've both been out hunting. It's tough. It's not like you can go, okay, God, cue the deer.
I think I got 29 days in a row that the deer have avoided me. I don't know why that is, but we have switched to America with Shemaine beef to compensate for the days that the deer don't show up. Get the best, healthiest, natural beef in the world. I swear we believe in this stuff, and what goes into the sacred temple determines your quality of life and health. And quality beef, like Switch to America with Shemaine beef, is the best you can eat.
Now, Jackson's way up there. We got to go catch him. You know, 4th of July is right around the corner, and you can get backyard barbecue bundle at switchtoamericawithshemaine.com. And you guys support American-made products. Check it out, switchtoamericawithshemaine.com. Joining me live now is Tudor Dixon, a businesswoman, podcast host, and fearless conservative who ran for governor of Michigan. We're going to talk about that. In 2022, she's one of the few voices willing to speak hard truth about what's really happening in her and my home state, with unbelievable radical policies, collapsing schools, and out of control crime becoming the new normal. Tudor, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. So You and I were talking off air, and there's so much to talk about. You're just definitely going to have to come back because I'm not going to get to all these questions. But first up, I think the most important thing for the state of Michigan, we got a Chinese couple caught smuggling pathogens into the state, CCP nationals snooping around Camp Grayling, and even a Chinese citizen voting in our election. And let's not forget thousands of people marching through Lansing yelling 86-47, like that's totally normal. Is Michigan now the testing ground for foreign infiltration and radical agendas, or is this just what happens when leadership looks the other way?
I mean, I think both, but I think that there are a lot of people, even I've heard people from the CCP committee who have asked the question, is Michigan the headquarters for the CCP in the United States? And they asked that question for the reason you just said. Here you have, at the University of Michigan, a biotoxin coming in. It's going to be in their minds, these people that smuggled this in, they're going to research it in the lab. And what this would have done was this would have infected our crops, and this could have caused widespread hunger across the United States. I mean, this was a catastrophic situation. It happened right under our noses here. You talked about the Chinese nationals that were caught spying on our military base. You talked about the Chinese national who voted in our election. And let's not forget that the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, who is now running for governor in the state of Michigan, promised us multiple times that no one could vote in our election that was not a U.S. citizen. In fact, she said it was ridiculous. She made fun of people who were saying it could happen, knowing that there were loopholes. And then there were a bunch of emails and text messages that were released from her department. It was very clear she was trying to cover up that not only she knew this could happen, but she didn't want the media to get involved with how many people potentially have illegally voted in Michigan elections. Now, keep in mind, she's running her own election for governor. How scary is that? And Shemaine, let's not forget that Gretchen Whitmer partnered with a CCP-aligned company, Goshen, and was going to bring them right into the center of Michigan. She was going to allow them to buy up the land, and she was waiving any type of environmental testing for this manufacturing company that was supposedly coming here to manufacture electric batteries. And remember, just last week, the USA Today told us if we're out there protesting, make sure you burn gas-powered vehicles instead of electric batteries because they're so dangerous for the environment.
Unbelievable. All right, let's talk about the auto industry. Once the beating heart of Michigan. Both my father and my brother work in the auto industry, and then they were forced to go electric, and now it's backfiring. How is the EV agenda killing jobs and crushing working class families, Tudor?
Well, praise the Lord for President Trump, because he has now eliminated these EV mandates, and he is going to bring back the auto industry in the state of Michigan. We just heard last week that GM is going to invest $4 billion into the United States. And remember that number that he came up that was like $500 billion of investments into the United States from all these different folks. And one of those is GM. GM has now committed to $4 billion that will go into Michigan, Kansas, and Tennessee. That will be to build, guess what? Not electric vehicles, gas-powered vehicles. So we know that this is coming back. We know that he has focused on Michigan as much as Gretchen Whitmer promised us that Joe Biden was going to focus on Michigan. Michigan didn't get any of even the electric vehicle plants that they were promised under Joe Biden. Well, thankfully, because now we're going to have gas-powered vehicle factories because of President Trump.
Well, yes, thank you. You've probably seen that video where there was a reporter asking a woman about the electric vehicle, and she said, "It's free energy. It's free." And they were like, "Well, where do you get that from?" Like, it's unbelievable. Let's go back to Governor Whitmer. She imposed, and this really gets me. She imposed some of the harshest COVID lockdowns in the country, while exempting her own family. Why has she never been held accountable for that double standard?
Honestly, I think it's because she has a massive amount of money supporting her. She's been able to get around it. She's also in a very media-friendly state for Democrats. The media has never held her to account. Even now, I mean, if you think about it, we have a state Senate seat that has not been called. It was vacated during the last election when the person ran for Congress. That person is now a congresswoman. This state Senate seat has been vacant. It's the longest we've ever had an open seat in the state that has not been called by the governor. But if she calls it, she could end up with a tie in the state Senate. And therefore, she has not. And she is not being held accountable by the media. I mean, to me, this is catastrophic. Taxation without representation, right? These people have no representative. This is really, I mean, unconstitutional if you think about it. And yet nobody is forcing her to actually call this election. She has no accountability in this state. Even when she went to the White House, even when she made a fool of herself holding that folder in front of her face, that story was disappeared from Michigan media almost immediately. And I'll tell you why. They see her as the dark